Hello. Oh, what happened to my voice there? Hello, hello. Let me get my overlays going. Um and then I've got my come on, getting my comments on here. There we go. It's always amateur hour when I start. I'm sorry. I wish Ecamm, the software I'm using. I mean, it's good for a lot of things, but um I wish they did a better job in having comments and things like being able to control what's on top and things like that. Um, all right. Good morning to me. Good evening to people in DC right now. Um, we it's a rainy day in Taipei, and I don't know. Things are going okay. I'm a little mellow this morning, but things are okay. I got this question right off the bat. If I believe in tinfoil things like ESP, um, spirits, bending spoons, hive minds, astral projections, in real life, I would say that no, I don't believe in any of that. I mean, I don't really believe in like human souls or things like that. Like my opinion on human consciousness is if you can take a wrench and hit somebody over the head and make them pretty much gone, um, then like the structures of who you are largely physical. And so um, I don't think that there's anything beyond that. Additionally, it's almost like a curse to kind of believe that consciousness can exist beyond this world, at least with memories attached. Because I begin to think about people that have like serious trauma, like say you're, say you're molested when you're young. Does that person always have to remember that they're molested for an eternity, going to heaven or to an astral plane or whatever? It's and so it's kind of a little relief the fact that we also like all die and dissipate and everything, but sad as well at the same time. I mean, it's a contradiction, right? Like uh, not wanting to be immortal, but not wanting to uh, you know, be mortal at the same time. So no, I don't believe now. If we're talking about George R. R. Martin's like sci-fi work, yeah, that's all over the place. I mean, Ice and Fire has it all over the place, but I don't really believe much of this in real life. Hello, you Chicago alum. Go Maroons. Go Maroon. Um, a lot of schools have colors as their mascot, and University of Chicago has the color maroon as as their mascot. Like like I think Stanford has cardinal, like as like not the bird, but the actual color, like red. Things like that. I once ran into an Australian guy who um, who I said the word maroon in just a random conversation, like that color over there is maroon, and he just got in my face and was like, "Dude, it's maroon. Like, how do you not know?" Like, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I went to a university that the mascot of the fucking university was the color maroon. Like, I think I know what the fucking color maroon is. It turns out it's a variant in Australia. People say maroon for some reason. It's a weird one. um, uh, this one we'll get to. Let's see. I can talk about this real quick. Because we're probably gonna get into talking about time traveling Bran some, but the or a lot. Considering I finished that, though there was a lot. People were upset that there was a lot of stuff I didn't touch, and it's like, yeah, I didn't touch Euron and things like that. Which I probably could have gotten into a little more, or speculating on how much Bran is controlling um, the House of the Undying or Quaithe or Marwyn or something. But um, the But how do I think Bran gets south of the wall once Hodor dies? I like the idea he would use the underground river, which leads to the crypts of Winterfell. Well, that'd be really interesting. Um, I mean, I kind of think if the underground caverns were going to be used like Gorn's Way, it'd be something that the others would use. But um, I guess I'm really married to the idea that Bran is coming out of that sinkhole. Um, and so I kind of guess that it's gonna end up like in the show, like it's amazing like rethinking everything and rereading things and realizing like how much fits with what the show did. Um, in fact, when I finished, uh, and so I kind of think like, okay, Mira, um, and Cold Hands or something, bringing him back to the wall seems to make the most sense. But it did give me thinking about the show and like how the show did things. Because after he gets out of that sinkhole, he like merges with another tree and becomes like the full three-eyed crow kind of situation and becomes Robot Bran, right? And I was thinking about whether that mean like could it be possible that Bran is going to merge himself with time traveling Bran and get all of the knowledge that time traveling Bran has, and then kind of realize later, like, oh my gosh, this was what was going on the whole time. Which, maybe. I mean, somebody sent me some messages saying like, it's amazing how close this is to Days of Future Past. And for those who don't know, Days of Future Past was a 1980 X-Men comic book. It was only 2 issues, where Shadowcat in the future phases herself back in time to her younger self. And all of a sudden, young Shadowcat has the memories of old Shadowcat. So she consciousness time travels and brings her consciousness back in time to herself. Um, and so, could Bran's version of time traveling Bran phase and merge with himself, which I guess kind of happened in the show. Like the show, a lot of people were complaining about Bran having nothing to do at at Winterfell, but then I'm like, but then again, if it's the final iteration, he doesn't need to do anything, right? He's there in case anything goes wrong to then time travel and redo it. But then he the actual viewed final iteration, he would appear to do nothing. So even after I finished Time Traveling Bran, the whole series, I'm like, oh, there's so many things that I question. Like things could be a little different, but I'm trying to even make sense of that. Like, why would Time Traveling Bran phase himself into that version of Bran versus like an earlier version of Bran or a later version of Bran? Like, why wouldn't he phase into Bran after Bran finished at Winterfell or before he fell in the pit, and all of these things, and it gets complicated, and my mind spins, and I don't even know. Shooting souls into wombs to warg zygotes, right, like where do souls come from? They just get shot into zygotes, and then 75% of the time those zygotes don't even make it. It's a big waste. God is very inefficient with his bestowment of souls. Um, Maroon 5. That's true. Is it Maroon 5 in Australia? Gotta think about that. I have to look up this. Now I'm thinking about when I look up stuff on the internet for while doing stream. For some reason, a tiny picture of myself like comes up in the corner there. Is Maroon 5 in Australia? Um, huh. This is weird. Maroon. This is a peculiarity of Australian pronunciation. I believe it's found throughout Australia. Maroon, as in the color, is pronounced maroon, whereas to be marooned is pronounced rather like how one would expect. This is in contrast to English speaking cultures, and no one knows where it originates from. Um, Barry Humphries wrote a poem about this quirk in Aussie speech, and no one here got to it. What a lovely maroon cardigan you're wearing, Beryl. Huh. So I guess it would all depend on whether or not Maroon 5 is referring to being marooned or if it's if it's the color. I don't know enough about Maroon 5 to make a comment on that. Um, let's see here. Oh, um, yeah, having the Phoenix as a mascot is pretty cool, but it's funny that the sports team is just called the Maroons, or yeah, it's not even plural, just the Maroon. I just know because it's this weird thing because what was very it's I think they got to this. There was this point where mascots. So many people had offensive mascots, and so um, they were trying to come up with um, things that are not as offensive as like Crusader or um, the Chiefs or something like that. And so you get to this point where it's like, well, let's just choose a color. And so like Stanford is like cardinal. I think they used to be the Indians. Dartmouth is like the big greens, and so Chicago is just maroon, maroon. Um, huh. And apparently, maroon maroon is a regional thing in Australia, so it's not even all of them. Da, 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 da. Um, let's see here. Days of Future Past is a pretty amazing story. So somebody also pointed out that Days of Future Past came out in 1980, which is around the same time as Night Flyers and Altered States. R.I.P. William Hurt. Um, and that it's like all this really influential sci-fi was coming out all around the same time. Um, but it's interesting going into that Altered States situation, and you realize like how incredibly influential that movie is. Even though today nobody like goes back and thinks like, oh, Altered States, what an incredible movie. Like it's not remembered in the same way as like Jaws or Star Wars, but it was insanely influential in the sense that it's just invented this entire trope that we see everywhere now. Um, but I still think Bran needs to climb down a sinkhole. Yeah, I'm trying to think like how he'd end up climbing down though, because wouldn't he have to go outside and then climb down and go back in? Um, he would be doubling back or something like that. I guess that's why I just think climbing out seems like the most logical thing if we're just thinking that he's eventually escaping the three-eyed crow. Um, are you less motivated to do A Song of Ice and Fire after George R. R. Martin's blog? Um, I'm a little less motivated to do theory videos, but I've got all of the House of the Dragon stuff and then the fan fiction project that I'm quite excited about. So um, like my brain has been thinking about the in its spare time the fan fiction project quite a bit. And then when I get into the House of the Dragon stuff, it's pretty exciting. But it's true that it's like, well, like there is that thought like what's the point of theorizing anymore when like I don't think we're ever going to find out like in any way. So, but we'll see. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. And um, Cold Hand is the host of Future Bran. It's always a possibility. I mean, he could have several hosts. And then again, there could be several. There could be 1,000 Future Brands running around as well. Um, it's 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 so weird. Like I often think because like having now put in so much time thinking about time traveling Bran, I kind of think like maybe George like create like gardened this, and created a bunch of stuff and then didn't actually like think it through because there's a lot of stuff that might contradict. It's really puzzling. Um, Sinkhole theory: wouldn't it just fill with water? Water is everywhere when you dig down, and the temperature rises as you dig deep, so not frozen. Huh? Are there frozen sinkholes? Because I'm thinking about like, okay, in real life, there's glaciers and such, but glaciers move, and so there's always the crevasse in glaciers. I'm trying to think about if a sinkhole. I mean, yeah, no, the sinkhole would happen because there's that underground river, and so the earth and water is draining slowly. Things would probably melt and refreeze and things like that. So I could see a sinkhole happening because there's so much subterranean activity going on. I'm just putting in quickly a sinkhole in a tundra if they exist. Oh yeah, look at these things. Okay, hold on. So here's a sinkhole like in a tundra, um, up in Siberia. But um, this is more what I'm thinking though, you know, because I'm thinking something that's icy on the side that he would have a tough time gripping, getting into. Plus, like Mira was like they set up Mira as a climber with the wall. Like, okay, if she had some good shoes and an ice axe, she can make her way up. Like this idea of is Mira capable of climbing the wall? Is Mira capable of climbing up the face of something that's icy and tall? So I was picturing something that was similar to to the wall in that respect. So like a sinkhole that's been covered in ice that she's going to scale up, and that a Bran at some time, like some previous point in history, tried to climb up, being an arrogant prick, and fell down, and then had to time travel because he was weightless. Now, I do admit that, like, having Brad's got like 2.5, 3 seconds before he hit the ground, and so I do think it's really ridiculous to like to to be relaxed enough to get into the zone in 2.5 seconds. Um, I did do when I was a younger man. I did do the longest bungee jump in the world at the time, which was this gondola in Interlaken, Switzerland. And on the one hand, like 2.5 seconds or whatever is nothing. I think with the free fall from the thing I did was like 3.5 seconds or something. It was 180 meters. Um, I'm just the number might be wrong, but that's what I think I remember it being. Um, but I do remember it was a very long 3.5 seconds. Like that 3.5 seconds of free fall is burned into my mind um, of that experience. The first time I bungee jumped. It's a really weird experience, by the way, because like I'll go on a tangent story. Because so you go to Interlaken, Switzerland, and they've got this gondola, and it was run by these these like party Australians. Like this feels like a whole like stream where we're trashing Australians, but like there's a bunch of like party Australians like who was just like yeah extreme sports raw, and they were running this this adventure tourism thing where you can do canyoning, where you can do hikes, all sorts of things, whitewater rafting, and so you go out for the I arrive and they're like, you want to go bungee jumping? I'm like, oh, okay. And then they immediately like shuttled off, like, oh my gosh. And so it's just, you're in this van and you're all shaking nervously because you're about to go do this bungee jump. And you get to the gondola and they've got these colored ropes to differentiate the two heights, because the gondola first goes up to 100 meters and then goes up to 180 meters. And, it was 100 Swiss francs at the time to go at 100 meters and 180 Swiss francs to go at the taller height. So half the people wanted to save money, and then half the people wanted to do the longest bungee jump in the world at the time, which you only got like a half more second of free fall, but I still just wanted to do the longer one. So you go, they pop you in, and there was a DJ inside the gondola. And of course, they actually literally put on AC/DC. So you're like rising up, like listening to Highway to Hell, like in this gondola, nervous as anything. And you get up to 100 meters, and they take the lightest people and they go first. And so it's a lot of Japanese tourists, like, are the first ones to go at the 100 meters. And I just remember, like, these, like, they strap the thing around the people's legs, and this 18-year-old Japanese kid like hops to the edge of the gondola, and they're like, okay, 3, 2, 1, and he like panics, and it's like and freezes, and they push him, and he, like, if you don't jump, you get pushed. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so everybody jumped after that. No one wanted to get pushed. And so, they get through all the light people, and you watch, each person falls. You just watch, you watch. And then we then go up to 180 meters. And for some reason, they had a rule that you're supposed to be by your chest for 180 meters rather than your ankles for 100. But as it emptied out and we got to only like 5 people left, I was like one of the heaviest because I'm a big guy. So I'm one of the last people to go. There's only like 3 people left in the gondola. And they're like, you guys want to go by the ankles? And I'm like, is it better? And they're like, oh yeah, it's better. I was like, okay, I guess I'll go by my ankles. I just remember, it getting strapped and you hopping over and then being like, little more, hopping over, and then just them saying, okay, 3, 2, 1. And you just kind of go. And in all these pictures, you have these like images of people doing this beautiful arc and then falling. But I just remember plummet. Like, that's all I remember is just plummet. And the longest few seconds of my life just being like, I can't believe I got myself into this. What am I doing? And then you begin to slow down and you begin to rise, and you're so happy that you're alive that it was like the biggest moment of euphoria to just be like, oh my God, I'm alive. And then you begin plummeting again. You're like, and then you again, and over. And, I do remember like thinking, oh, I want to experience weightlessness, like feel myself at the up point and stuff like this. Anyway, we get down to the bottom, and I'm just kind of like, whoa, I can't believe we went through all that. It was an incredible experience. 1 year later, no, it was 5 years later. 5 years later, my mother was reading the newspaper, and she said, so Preston, where did you go bungee jumping again? And I was like, yeah, Interlaken, Switzerland. And she's like, was it from like adventure tours, whatever? I was like, yeah. And she reads this story where kid got brought up into the gondola and he jumped from 100 meters and he hit the ground because they gave him the 180-meter rope. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know how they could have done that. They were color coded, like red and green. But at the same time, like, the complete lack of professionalism from the people running the thing, I can kind of understand it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But anyway, long story. I hope that was. Oh, geez. The soul is stored in the balls. Well, I mean, yeah. I guess maybe we're all given like billions of souls that are all in our balls, and then we shoot them into people. Would you ever do team ups with other YouTubers outside of Red Team Review? Well, yeah, every once in a while, it's once in a blue moon, but I've done collabs with different people. But it's tough to get people on the same schedule and things like that, and reaching out to people and stuff like that. Um, it's one of those things where I have to be like, oh, I want to reach out to somebody, and then it's like, well, what's the best way to reach those people? And then, um, yeah, but every once in a while, I do that, but. I think I've recently talked to Man of the West and Trey the Explainer and Phil the Issues Guy and things like that. Um, can you touch on the theory of the hunt of Robert's hunting tapestries? This is. I'll get in this quickly, but the idea is that the hunting tapestries would show Baratheons in them, and so that it's the equivalent of that book. That, oh, from thousands of years ago, the Baratheons are still have the same like black hair, and of this, I've got Mia Stone right here to prove to all of you of what a Baratheon looks like. So this was in a similar respect. It's there's nothing really like deep about it. It's the exact same thing as a Game of Thrones, where they had the book, which gave a history of the Baratheons, and they wanted Gendry, a physical specimen that shows what an actual child of Robert would look like. So it's the exact same situation, just again. Littlefinger's got the tapestries, he's got Mia Stone. And so in his hands, he has absolute proof that this is what uh, the Baratheons would look like in the same respect. And it's more visual. No one's going to be reading the book and trying to sleuth it out and all of that. But and so if they wherever Littlefinger wants to push things. Now, I think Littlefinger's going to fail. At least in the short term. I understand in the show, like Littlefinger got everyone to go to the north, but everything's kind of being set up, especially with the lesser House Royce, like how much they know and all their scheming. It just seems like things are not going to go according to Littlefinger's plan, or at least his stated plan, and something else is going to happen. Maybe even a kingship for Sweet Robin, but um, I think Alayne too is going to be pretty soon on the fan fiction schedule, if not next, like the third or fourth, And so I think I'm going to put a lot more thought into everything that's gonna happen here. But the tapestries are essential, but they're essentially just the book again. Like everybody thinks, oh well, Pycelle's dead. That book, you know. I mean, I imagine someone would just find Pycelle's body and either uh, and over that book, and they would try to get rid of it. But you got the tapestries anyway, and Mia Stone. So, um, uh, do you think Brand would bind to the the werewood to become much like Leto the Second binds with the sand trout in the Dune series? It could be Brand's golden path to save humanity. It's an interesting idea. Well, what Donnie is talking about here is that in at the end of Children of Dune, and most people know the story of Dune, but Paul Atreides like ends up becoming the leader, and then his son Leto the Second, who is actually the third Leto, but Leto the Second, uh, uh, decides that he's going to do better than his father, and he like biologically like binds with you know I want to say larval sandworms, the trout, and becomes like half sandworm, half human, and ends up like living for thousands of years and things like this, and becomes the God Emperor of Dune, which is the fourth book. Um, I think that George R. R. Martin is still going with the idea that like you have to break away from the gods and like and choose your own destiny after that. I do think that the Brienne and Jaime story is an important thing thematically. And so I think like once the others are kind of defeated, that there's this idea that he can no longer be a god and has to like be a human being where humans are in charge of their own destiny in an existential sense. Like I think that feels most George R. R. Martin to me than Bran lives like controls everything as a half human, half werewood for thousands of years with where humans don't get to choose their own path. Um, plus I think if Bran became a half werewood, half human ruling, I think people would make the connection to Dune a little too much. Um, so I mean, I think I do think that he originally like the events of the show pretty much are happening. Like Bran's going to be a human being physically as king. But I do think there's some thematic elements, like the time travel elements, were kind of glossed over in the show, and I think the thematic elements were ignored because they're just kind of going down a checklist. Um, I remember I accidentally stumbled into the election of Jon Snow video. I looked at the author of the video. Uh, any thoughts? This is PJ? I thought he was supposed to be crazy. Thanks. Oh, so there's this. So early on, it's amazing how much like the opinion of the fandom has kind of changed over time. Uh, and some of this would have happened anyway, but I do think that the Thousand Worlds book club, which very few people were part of, relatively speaking, but like it was important enough to the fandom that when you had like me saying things like, "Oh, it's a very good chance that this is a post-apocalyptic world," and everybody who comes from fantasy books, these are people that just finished Wheel of Time and are going into Ice and Fire and being like, "Oh, this is John is the chosen one," that kind of stuff. John is Rand, that kind of idea. Um, and so then you hear, well, actually, maybe it's a post-apocalyptic world. And then when I first came out and was saying things like that, people are like, "You're crazy tinfoil." But then when I got everyone to read, when I got enough people, a critical mass of people to read The Thousand Worlds and put that writing into the zeitgeist, like also keep in mind that most of those stories didn't exist online until they appeared online. And so enough people started reading them, and then all of a sudden, like you had a few defenders like, "Have you read anything else by George R. R. Martin? Because George R. R. Martin is fucking nuts, um, like go reading Night Flyers and stuff like that." And then all of a sudden, like I don't think people say like, "Oh, Preston is nuts," as any like crazy nuts anymore. Like it's like, okay, I can disagree with Preston, but I understand where he's coming from. I think that's kind of like the shift from the very beginning. Like there was some very very negative backlash in the beginning against me, and then I think enough people were like read like George R. R. Martin's other works, which is what I like clamored for years. Like read George R. R. Martin's other works, and once you read George R. R. Martin's other works, you're like, "Oh no, that kind of makes sense." Okay, all right. Um, so yeah, I think that's a little bit. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and there's this whole section of the fandom that's still going. That's like, "No, Preston is crazy tinfoil. You can't listen to anything he says." Um, I recently was on the internet, and I looked at a Reddit post, and it was like somebody posted, "Preston Jacobs is crazy. He thinks that like Fire and Blood is just a whole bunch of lies, and he thinks George R. R. Martin is writing this intricate thing." It's like, just let the text be the text, and accept that some things just happened as they're explained to happen. And I remember reading the replies like, "Nah, dude, like Fire and Blood is completely filled with lies. Like, have you read that thing? Like, it's like the example of unreliable narrator. And I was like very happy to see that like half the comments were like, nah, like Preston Jacobs may be crazy, but not on this one, like things like that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm still seen as crazy, but um I think people like there was this story that I was like super crazy, and then you kind of like watch the videos and you're like, it's not that crazy. Um, uh, do you think time traveling Bran will connect with Bran the Builder as him, or is he just connected to the Three-Eyed Raven? I don't see it. Like, I just don't see how, logically speaking, he could birth himself after having made like massive changes in prehistory. Like, I understand that some people are like, oh, it's all a time loop, so you don't have to worry about it. Um, like, I think maybe there were other time travelers before Bran, but um, this idea that like Bran is responsible for everything from the beginning of time is a little weird because it's like, well, then how did Bran come about? Unless it was a different Bran genetically, you know, like it wasn't really Bran. Like he had the name Bran, but it was a completely different guy actually because if you start messing with stuff before Bran's born, like that sperm and that egg aren't going to meet. And I know that like that sort of stuff is forgotten in like Back to the Future. Like Back to the Future is ridiculous. Like it is absolutely ridiculous that like Marty would make changes to the timeline like that and then be born the exact same person with the exact same genetics. Like you completely changed like how like just the fact that his house looks completely different means that like that would influence his parents in doing like having sex on a different day at a different time, eating a different meal. They were much more wealthy, so they'd be eating different things. It would affect their mood. Just you just need like a tiny little move and he's a completely different person. Like you have sex 5 minutes later, you're a different person. She decides to go on top instead of on the bottom for a second, like different person. um so it's so weird in that respect now, but that's Back to the Future. They're being sloppy. Like George R. R. Martin really cares about genetics. Like he really really cares about genetics. Like that was his go-to thing, right? Genetics. His sci-fi was all like genetics and telepathy. So like for him to not think about that, it would be a little tough. I just don't think it's time loops because I don't think time loops like are very compelling. Um, but I don't know. The da, da. um let's see. If current time traveling Bran has time traveled 1,000 times, how come he doesn't remember the previous times? Does his memory get erased? And so, what's the point? Well, I think it's a different Bran. So he's a naked new Bran born. So time traveling Bran goes back and helps a different Bran. So he's Bran's the next iteration. So every Bran that's born does not have the memories of time traveling Bran. Time traveling Bran in the story is an ethereal being, either in the werewood or hiding in somebody, cold hands, in open air, somewhere. He's somewhere out there floating, but he's not in Bran that we know, unless he's like deep in Bran's consciousness or some subconscious or something. Then Bran doesn't know it. But so the new Bran that's born is free of the memories, and then he goes forward, has his adventures, and then time travels back and becomes time traveling Bran as a new Bran is born. Now, um, so I imagine like at some point from looking through the werewood or perhaps merging at some point, having some sort of telepathic like mind exchange with time traveling Bran. This information is transferred that allows the new time traveling Bran to have enough knowledge to like make progress because at some point, or figure out like what he needs to do next. But yeah, I mean, he does. I mean, he does. He only seems to remember so far. Like we haven't seen this merging yet. But new Bran like gets visions from time traveling Bran, so he gets that knowledge. And I imagine like time traveling Bran would change that vision every time. You know, it's a bit like that Star Trek episode where um, they get the message three, like sent back from the future from a previous self. Like they had no memory, even though there's a little bit of like, oh, this seems familiar, but like they have no memory going forward that 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 anything's up. But they get the message from themselves of three, and Data figures out at the last moment that it refers to Riker's command insignia, that his opinion is correct over Data's, and they get out of the loop. So he remembers that at like the last second. So I think it's something similar to that Star Trek episode. The time traveling Bran is bringing information back and preparing a new Bran, but you know, so he doesn't remember anything because it's a new Bran every time. Beep. Okay. Where? No, okay, I'm way. Where's the door in the no escape sinkhole? I imagine it's just like a tunnel on the ground and then the sinkhole at the end. And I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's a physical door or if it's just like hold the corridor or whatever. But the you know, so I imagine that like I imagine that the first time Bran, I don't know if like he was even paralyzed at this point, but Bran gets to that sinkhole, starts climbing the wall. He's climbing up. He's climbing up. It's taken him a long time because the sinkhole is probably like the height of the wall. It's like 700, feet. And then, he's making it half up, and then the whites or the White Walkers arrive, and they start crawling up the wall too, crawling on top of each other, building a mound, or something. I don't know, building a ladder. They start climbing up. They grab Bran by the foot, or he just slips on his own because he's frightened, and he falls, and he time travels, and then his body hits the ice spires and gets killed. But he time travels, and so he's like, "Fuck, I got to do something about those others." So he Hodor's Walder's mind, and so now Walder is there, and so the next time around, he's like, "Okay, get into the wall." Starts climbing up. Hodor is guarding the door. He's fighting off the others. He's fighting off the whites. This is working out. He's like, "All right, great, cool, totally worked." He gets like 3/4 of the way, and then he falls on his own, and he time travels, and he falls, and he hits that ice spire, and he time travels, and he hits that ice spire, and he dies, and he's like, "Fuck, I'm not going to be able to get out of that hole." Or maybe he tries it many times. He's like, "I'm not going to fall the next time." And then he does it, and he's like, "Damn it, I'm not a good enough climber." And he eventually realizes that he's not a good enough climber. He's like, "I need a better climber." So he looks around, and he's like, "Okay, Mira." So he sends visions to Jojen, and he gets Mira. And so Mira now climbs to the top, throws down the rope, and she's able to pull him out while Hodor guards the door. And then he gets out, and he no longer time travels. And somehow, a lot of people, I'm gonna have to have this in the Time Traveling Bran Q&A, but somehow during that big cycle, he began thinking about, well, what about the others? Like, how am I going to deal with them in the long term? Maybe I need a second time travel save point. And so he's like, oh, the Werewood at Winterfell would be that, but Ah, crap! It got burned when John became Lord of Winterfell. God damn it. Okay, so I've got to make sure that when I do get out of the sinkhole, that John does not become Lord of Winterfell. So he goes back, makes John reject Stannis' offer, and then he's like, okay, now's a good time to get out of the sinkhole. He has to decide to get rid of to make John change his mind before he actually leaves the sinkhole. Because if he leaves the sinkhole without thinking, he's kind of SOL. Like, I mean, I suppose there's weirwoods close to the wall, so maybe he could climb up the wall and jump off. Because the where the we don't really know how far weirwood roots go and how far he needs to be from a weirwood. I mean, clearly the sinkhole is several kilometers down, like away from the weirwood, but I imagine that the weirwood roots or whatever are close enough. But he needs to, and so maybe maybe the the prayer spot. He could just climb up a wall at the prayer spot and plummet and time travel there as a new save point. But it's also kind of sucky to have him have save points because even after he's king, if something goes really wrong, he can go to like the Isle of Faces and or go back to Winterfell and be like, okay, this fucking didn't work out. I gotta time travel again. It's too tempting for him. Um, let's see. Meanwhile, Florida State are the Seminoles. There used to be a bunch of uh, like teams just called the Germans and stuff like that. Kind of weird. Um, huh. Apparently, Chicago's teams used to be yellow, and then they looked bad, so they got changed to maroon. Well, I'm trying to. Chicago hasn't had a good sports team since they left the Big Ten, so I don't know if how much they changed, how much they care. Um, oh, what are the Thens going to do in the fan fiction? I'm not sure yet. The Wall is probably the least um, amount of time I've put like thought into what's going to happen next. Like I kind of know what's gonna. I kind of figure out what I would do at Winterfell, um, and then most other regions like Dorne, uh, uh, Storm's End, the Vale. Kind of, I have a good idea. Daenerys, I have a very good idea of where I want those stories to go. The ones I'm the kind of the biggest mystery on is actually Ario Hota. I don't really know where he's going in I kind of know in an abstract sense, like, but I don't know what Melisandre would do. Like, yeah, I understand there's the burning of Shireen kind of stuff that the showrunner said would happen, and kind of John being as Ghost for a while would happen, but you know, I don't know, and maybe the all of the chieftains might burn up in the Shield Hall, but I don't have to think about it. Like, does does Jane Poole make it to the wall? Things like that. Like, I don't know. So let's see here. Why? Oh, this is what. Why is there a door in the no escape sinkhole? Yeah, I don't. It shouldn't be. I mean, yeah, really weird. I mean, maybe it's a door in a from the previous post-apocalypse. Like, there was talk of like the Night Fort actually being like older than the Wall, and then the question of well, why? Why would the Night Fort be older than the Wall? So maybe that door is part of some sort of maybe it's actually like a stone um, frame, and it's actually part of like an old castle. But it seems really weird. I mean, it was just a fucking hinged door with no explanation in the show. How is Mira such a good climber when she grew up in a marsh and had never seen mountains before a storm of swords? Because she's a Mary Sue. Okay, she's a Mary Sue. There's no there's no reason that she should be a good climber. You're absolutely right. I mean, maybe she was climbing trees. Maybe it's like she's climbing a lot of really slippery trees that had moss on them in order to like get various fruit that were in the swamp, and that was a really important thing, especially for highborn girls. You know, like when we need something, when we need some fruit, certainly send out the Lord's daughter to collect fruit for everyone. I mean, she knows how to like spear frogs and things like that. Like this is a Lord's daughter, okay? But yeah, it's ridiculous. Maybe I'll have to throw that in that they used to climb a lot of trees. Greetings from Bristol. Can the Tyrells survive winter? What would you do in their place? Tyrells, I mean, the Tyrells are a lot like the Freys in the sense that um, as much as people want to kill them all off, you can't kill them all off. They haven't put all of their eggs in one basket. There's so many Tyrells. Um, so so you're never going to see the extinction of House Tyrell because like now you might see the extinction of uh, Mace Tyrell's like line. Like Marjorie looks like she's in trouble because George R. R. Martin sets everything up to subvert expectations. And so right now Marjorie's got this really good case and Cersei's got a really bad case. And so it looks like Cersei's going to be found guilty and Marjorie's going to be found innocent, which means the reverse is going to happen. Cersei's going to be innocent and Marjorie's going to be found guilty. So it looks like Marjorie's going to be executed by the Faith, or maybe she'll be like in the show where she has to pull some move and then gets blown up in the sept or whatever. That's all possible, but it doesn't look like Marjorie's going to survive. Loras, we have no idea if what happened to Loras really happened to him. There's so many weird inconsistencies with the story of Loras on Dragonstone. But again, like he can just be randomly killed at any time because he's fighting and he's a hothead. The um, um, starts with a G. Fuck, I hate it when I like forget like really basic characters' names and it makes me look horrible. Not Garrus. It's like fucking A. Now I've got to look this up. I'm sure like a million people in the chat are gonna be like screaming at me. How are you forgetting Garland? Fucking Garland. Garland's going to war too, so it looks like he's probably going to get killed by the Ironborn. And then Willis. Willis might survive. We need to learn a lot more about Willis. He's been set up as this interesting character. Why he was sending letters to Oberyn Martell is a big mystery. We've been hearing about him forever. He needs to be a main character. Going forward. So if he's killed, I don't know how he'd be killed because he's in Highgarden. He's not really he's already crippled, so he's not one going into battle. So something has to happen. He has to be captured and executed for anything like that. But it seems like Willis seems the safest. I don't know how they would kill Willis, but now, what would I do in the Tyrell's place, though? I guess immediately bend the knee to Aegon or something. The problem is they're too connected to the Lannisters at this point. So maybe the rest of House Tyrell will do that, but it's tough. It's tough when they take a shot because I said it's tough. But the when you've married the king and everything, and you're pot committed, you're pot committed on Tom and King. So it's a bad situation to be in. What chapters do I want to do after Dany? I really want to tackle Alayne 2. I think that'll be very interesting. That's been on my mind. I really want to do Samwell, though I don't have as many ideas on where Samwell is going because there's just so much going on in Old Town. Um, I think some easier chapters to do would be, I think Victorian um, might be a pretty easy chapter to do. I think doing a Quentin chapter would be very interesting. And um, and maybe even doing Ariana or John Con. But those are the ones I'm kind of thinking about right now. I don't have many ideas for um, Melisandre or Ariohota, and so I have to think about those before. But I think I'm leaning most towards Alayne too, as the next one. If not, just maybe maybe Quentin. I don't know. It's quite a gauntlet being put down by saying like I want to do Quentin, But um, let's see here. I've heard your eyes can pop out of their sockets from bungee jumping. I don't know. I don't know. Because you do reach a terminal velocity at some point. So you can't really go that. And it's not actually a very, like, you slow down slowly with the rubber band. Collab with Pat Finnerty. I would love to. I love Pat Finnerty so much. I don't know if he knows anything about Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones, but he's. I would love. I mean, I just think his videos are the funniest fucking thing. If you're looking for the most underrated uh, YouTuber out there, it's Pat Finnerty. Um, he does these really incredible music videos. I mean, you kind of have to be into rock and roll, especially rock and roll from the '90s. But he's so knowledgeable about music, and he's so funny, and he's just I don't know. It's right up my alley. But he's he's great. But he considering how good his videos are and how few views they get, they're so funny. Maybe in the Harry the Air Lance in the groin. I mean, he's gonna die certainly. Harry the Air is absolutely 100% gonna die in that jousting. There's that's just like um, uh, he he's just been set up as being inexperienced going into a jousting tournament, and you just don't. We know what happens when you're inexperienced going into a jousting tournament. We have Sir Hugh, like at the hands tourney in a Game of Thrones. Like Sir Hugh is the setup for Harry the Heir. Like Sir Hugh, he got his knighthood when he didn't deserve it because John Arryn liked him and gave it to him as a gift, and then he used that knighthood, to enter a tournament that he shouldn't have been entering, and he got killed by the Mountain. And everyone, like, it was set up like, oh, it was this murder. No, it was he shouldn't have been jousting in that tournament. I mean, maybe Littlefinger put the lists around, but he shouldn't have been going up against the Mountain. That's for sure. It just was not safe. And so Harry the Heir is also upjumped. He's been called an upjumped squire. He's not a true knight. He shouldn't have been knighted, and he's getting put in tourney against three um uh um um I'm about to say the sistermen. I'm about to say fishmen or squishers. He's been put up against three sistermen that everyone thinks don't know how to joust, who actually know how to joust. But they've been bankrupting themselves, getting these steeds onto their island. They've been practicing. These sistermen know how to joust. Everyone's going to think they don't know how to joust. They're going to put Harry the Heir up against a sisterman, thinking that it's going to be an easy win for him, and he's going to get killed. Like. But I did a whole, prepping for winter on this, so it's just. Let's see, I'm way behind here. Um, um, disheartened by the latest update, I was hoping that the events in Ukraine and the all-out war would motivate him to finish A Song of Ice and Fire. Think that can make a difference. Uh, I don't know. I feel like if I talk about George R. R. Martin's mindset right now, I'm going to sound really like angry and bitter against him. He he definitely disappointed me. Not just in the sense like had he just had a a blog post that said, I'm really really sorry. I haven't been making progress. This is going to take a lot more time. It would have been different for me than I'm sorry for you, like kind of attitude. Um, but this is a lot of people talk about these things like when they talk about like George and his writing. So a lot of defenders will say, okay, George doesn't owe you anything. No, he doesn't owe anybody anything. He doesn't. Also, you don't owe George your kindness. Okay? You don't owe George so nobody owes anybody anything. Okay? He doesn't owe us a book. We don't owe him kindness. I respect his writing. I want him to write. I think he's a great writer. But, you know, it doesn't go beyond that. Like it doesn't make me think that it doesn't I don't owe him being a defender, like, and he doesn't. I don't owe him like to be his proxy excuse maker. Like so, it's frustrating, because he's a great writer and you want him to write, and he's really good at writing endings. Like his best things are his endings. Like if you take any of George R. R. Martin's books, and you take any of his short stories, and you say, yeah, he's a great writer. His prose is great. His conversations are great. The characters are great. They're really colorful. And the thing excels at are endings, like those just punch in the gut endings. And I told him to his face, like, you're so good at endings. And it's just, that when you finish a George R. R. Martin story and you're like, oh God, you know, um, there, it's just sad. It's very disappointing. It's very disappointing that he's focusing on things that like are not as good. Like I want him to succeed and I want him to have a great magnum opus. And, um, I want that. I want to feel that last page of A Dream of Spring and all of that. But, so no, I don't think anything like war or anything is going to change his mind or motivate him. The only thing that can really happen is if House of the Dragon does really, really, really poorly and everything is cut off, and like his coffee table book goes really, really poorly. His fucking coffee table book. Oh God. But you know, it's yeah, that just makes me sad. I just wanted to say that even before the Thousand Worlds Book Club, I never thought you were crazy. You always break down your reasoning. That's an opinion. That always has baffled me. Yeah, it was just having funny, uh, fun stuff that we debating back and forth. There. It's not that there weren't other people that were thinking about weird stuff, but they also got some really negative uh, attitude from people. So the guy, I've said this many times. The guy that motivated me to do what I'm doing was a blog. It was a guy named Bran Vras. I think he's a French guy who just created a website with his ideas. He didn't do it for very long, but it was like just really cool analysis stuff. And I'd never seen anything like it. And he made me really rethink everything. And he quit the fandom because he didn't like the fandom. Like, he would post an idea and people were just like, you're nuts, go away. And so he did. He went away. But he's just genius stuff, Brand Ross. And then there was another one called they got delegated to this very um, like all the posting that was originally on A Song of Ice and Fire forum. Like there was one called Heresy, and so they'd go to and they would talk about kind of thinking about the North and Bran and North on the Wall differently. Um, and they just kind of got relegated to this one posting stream, and while everybody else is talking about R plus L equals J, and how Jamie was gonna keep his oath by swearing allegiance to John, and all these like random stuff that just like in like doesn't fit at all, but like fits a typical fantasy story. And so it was it's been an interesting ride to see how things changed. I think the show ending the way it did, as much as people hate the way the show ended, it at least did break the idea that it was a standard fantasy story. John wasn't the hero, and so now like theorizing about John not being the hero is more kosher. Um, hi Preston. Do you think time traveling Bran could have manipulated John to stay at the wall so he could be killed and Bran could take his body? Um, Certainly, that's what I think a lot of people that are still in the John mindset like kind of think. And yeah, looking at the show where John is such a focus, it's hard not to have that like idea in one's head. Like when we talk about Bran's first vision and John sitting in a room alone growing cold. And I sort of like in the Time Traveling Bran video, I talk about how, well, when he's in a room cold alone is when he gets his vision of the crypts and Bran in A Storm of Swords. And so we're kind of looking at the same thing. And a lot of people said, well, wait, doesn't that sound like John in a room dead um, after he got stabbed, which is something that happened in the show. Um, the Though I think maybe in the show Ghost was in the room or something, but nonetheless, like if the book went the same way as the show, you would have another interpretation of that vision. Um, and some visions do appear twice. Like Danny has a vision where she's going to be surrounded by people with their arms up saying mother. And she experiences that twice. She when people when she liberates people from Yunkai, that happens. And then later, when the Astapori refugees arrive at Marine, she goes out and they're doing the same thing. So you can have a vision appear twice, and then you question like which one is the real event. So, John growing cold alone in a room and having a vision of Bran, um, happened. It fulfills the vision, but at the same time, it could happen again. Maybe it's John growing cold in that room, and maybe it's very important that John be an undead walking guy. One would think it's important because it brings Melisandre into worshiping John, right? And brings people on the wall maybe into worshiping John. Because it's odd because in the show they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing with the fact that John gets resurrected, right? Like it makes no difference whatsoever. I mean, I suppose in the sense that like Melisandre thinks John's really important, so he hangs out with her, and then she eventually reminds Arya about the eyes, and then Arya goes and attacks the Night's King, like I guess in that respect, but like no one worships John as a god. John's character doesn't really change very much after being resurrected. Like it's but one would think that they would all worship him like a god once he came back from the dead or something, and that would affect something. So maybe Bran wants that to happen, and it kind of I'm not opposed to these like Bran, it was all time traveling Bran kind of Ford planned it all ideas. Okay, I'm way behind on things here. Do you think time traveling Bran is connected to the Unkiss? Or is our author trying to say something else with that? So one thing that I thought about the Unkiss, we're talking about Catelyn. right, with the unkiss, is that Catelyn was floating down that river, and that's um, and then, but the problem is like, so there was this idea of her floating that I started thinking about, but then again, Arya is the one that, as Nymeria, pulls her out and says like, rise, and then she gets kissed by Beric, and you're like, okay, this is like the poison in the pie or the poison in the wine. Like, you've got a bunch of different supernatural things happening at the same time. Like, what supernatural thing is responsible for bringing Catelyn back? Right? Like, is is it a telepathically um, possessed direwolf who was also like brought in probably by some sort of like dream sender south of the wall, pulling Catalan's dead body from the water while floating and then commanding it to animate again? Or was it the other animated dead body coming along and kissing it and animating it, the thing that caused it to animate? Who knows? But I do think that if you're gonna go with Ford planned it all, time traveling Bran planned it all, that yeah, that somehow Catelyn is part of that too. But I mean, Catelyn, thematically, she's very important for Brienne and Jamie, though I don't know, like, plot wise, like why she would connect to the others or anything like that. One of the things that like I thought about a lot that is frustrating for me is that when I analyze the book, you kind of look at geography. One would think that like just geography wise that the final battle would happen around Harrenhal, just so all the armies could come together in the central location. So you could have Dany fulfill her vision of drying up the the trident with her fire. Um, so you could find out what's going on in the Isle of Faces. Like, there's so many things to me that make like Harrenhal the perfect end for the story. But then you get this. Then you have the show like ending at Winterfell and the importance of the Winterfell weirwood, which I admit, like the Winterfell weirwood looks really, really important, which makes me think, oh, well, would the final battle be at Winterfell? How's everybody going to get up to Winterfell? It's freaking frozen north. I don't know. But so, prior to the show, I would have said like everything's going to end at Harrenhal, but now, and Isle of Faces, but now I don't know. Now after doing Time Traveling Bran and seeing the show, I don't know. I kind of flip a coin on that. So, because if we're at Harrenhal, then we could have all of these characters kind of meet in the same place. Like, Catelyn. I mean, Catelyn's down there. Why would Catelyn walk all the way to the north? Um, this is odd. I'm not familiar with the term shaving the yak. These things that catch my eye. Shaving the yak refers to a task that leads you to perform another related task, and so on, distracting you from the original goal. That's this chat. Is that the idea? Or are we talking about George R. R. Martin? Yeah, okay. Um, is Rhaenys the second Baratheon looking? Um, no, I don't think so. But you bring up a good point though about about the seed is strong, and like what retcons can do, right? Um, this is very funny though. This is a very interesting idea. So so we're talking about Rhaenys, the queen who never was, and Rhaenys is the queen who never was. Her mother is Jocelyn Baratheon, and Jocelyn Baratheon's mother is Rhaegar Baratheon. Um, and I think they must somehow be claiming that it's a male link thing. I forget the actual. Let's bring up the what Eddard actually says. If it's just because I forget if it's just boys or if it's all children. Because that's a good point on things. Okay. Um, this is a very good point. Right, he talks about it when talking to Cersei, right? The seed is strong. John Aaron had cried on his deathbed, and so it was. All those bastards, all with hair of black as night. Um, Grandmaster Maladin recorded the last mating. Ah. So it's specifically Baratheons and Lannisters. So it's not that Baratheon hair is dominant over all hair colors. It's dominant over Lannister gold. And so Jocelyn Baratheon and Rhaenys, they can be Baratheon, um, and still have Targaryen silver hair, uh, because Targaryen silver hair isn't necessarily always recessive or falling to Baratheon black. It's only Lannister gold falling to Baratheon black when those two put together. That's what it is. But it's an interesting catch. The because we do get this idea that it's like the Baratheon black is always going to dominate. Now that said, makes all those bastards like ridiculous too. Because if it's only to Lannister gold, all those bastards weren't with Lannisters. What does that prove? How does it prove anything? Like all of those people had different genes. At least some of them should be dominant over Baratheon black. It's only Lannister gold that's recessive. George really George really fucked up with this genetics of hair thing. Because like I say, like it's really quite stupid. And like I say, like the I've gone over this before. Like the jump of Cersei is having sex with her brother, um, versus anybody else, like comes out of nowhere. Like by proving that black always goes over Lannister gold, like you're only proving that Cersei is cheating on Robert. You're not proving that it's with Jaime. And even if you say, oh well, we're proving it because it's double Lannister or something, then you still have Lancel, and all these other things that or somebody from the Westerlands that has like gold hair or something. It's why isn't she sleeping with Sir Preston Greenfield? That idea. Yeah, very very good catch, but um let's see. While falling, Bran could warg into Summer, who escaped through the underground cave, and then as Summer, Bran plans to make things different, this time and travels to Winterfell to try again. Yeah, but I don't know if in the second body you would have the same time travel abilities. Um, yeah, it's because if you're in your second life, you can't necessarily do it again. Like Varamir Sixskins talks about how once as a second life, you don't have a third life. It's not like you can um, body jump. You're not a jumper. This is actually from Wild Cards. George had this villains called the Jumpers who could swap their consciousness with another person and then keep swapping and keep going, and it led to some really random stuff, like somebody being raped by their like a dude getting raped by his grandson because he had hopped into a woman's body and then got raped by his grandson. It's really it's yeah, the Jumpers. Um, anyway, but I don't think you have the ability to jump again once you're in the second body, which makes So yeah, I guess the merging then would make sense. If Bran could merge with time traveling Bran, then his body would still be able to time travel. So time traveling Bran would be able to get another jump, and he could snowball the knowledge. Huh. Um. It's all these weird aspects of things. Hmm. 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 Yeah. Let's see here. I'm way behind. I'm seeing all the Garland messages. It's like Garland. Oh, god damn it. I'll bet we'll only get the rest of Duncan Egg through Fire and Blood too. Absolutely, absolutely. There's no way he's writing 8 stories. We might get She Wolves. He's mostly done on She Wolves. I'm pretty sure. He's got he's got he's got that story like completely fleshed out. Uh, it's just the it's the rest, like because he said something like he would need like 8 stories in order to get all the way to Summerhall. There's no way he's writing all 8 Duncan Egg stories. They'll be like, okay, let's say the best case scenario, like they they get they stretch out Duncan Egg like Hedge Knight to a full fucking season. I don't know how. You're throwing in like Blackfire shit um, or something like some broader story in order to do that. This is really like stretching The Hobbit to 3 movies to get Hedge Knight to a full season, or even Sworn Sword to a full season would be even tougher. Um, that yeah, I mean, it's just not as much stuff going on, and but man, but say they're like, okay, George, you just got to finish She Wolves of Winterfell because we're hitting season 4. I could see him getting that one out, and then being like, okay, you just have to write one more short story, and he wouldn't be able to do it. you know? But yeah, I feel like Fire and Blood, I think he has more urgency to do Fire and Blood too, because if you're doing the Blackfire shit, because if you have to flesh out Duncan Egg, you've got to do Blackfire stuff, and you've got to flesh out those battles. Like what happened in the first Blackfire Rebellion? What exactly happened um, to Bittersteel and the Golden Company, and what houses were actually Blackfire supporters, and what houses were Daron supporters, and things like that. So it's I feel like he has more urgency to do that than Duncan Egg. Um, uh, I've been consuming Red Team review videos, and I was previously unaware that there's a mention of an emphasis episode 12 providing backstory. I'm not sure what it might be. It might have to do with like when people tried to like cancel my channel way back in the day. I think it might have to do with that, and me talking about like what the big hubbub was way back in the day, which is essentially like people didn't like Preston Jacobs' tinfoil theories, so they were coming up with excuses to try to attack my channel. Um, Theory: White Walkers give Bran access to their timeless nature as a defense mechanism against the world ending. Once Bran succeeds, he loses those time travel powers. Yeah, I mean, he does need some sort of. I do feel like he needs to lose the ability to time travel, but if he can time travel from any werewood, he would have to destroy every werewood or something. Um, which would just be a weird ending to like just environmentally like cause a tree species to go extinct. Plus, like, are you gonna find them all? Like, find all the werewoods north of the wall? I kind of think that like really like thematically, if we're talking about like mankind like being on their own, you kind of need Bran to die. But we saw the show end and Bran's king, so I don't know. Um, or maybe he's just not going to worry about it. Bran will just promised to never time travel again, or it's left ambiguous. Um, yeah, but I do think that it should. I do think that Bran should lose the ability to time travel, but I don't know how he would do that. I mean, if it were only him time traveling the at the at the sinkhole, and then he's out of the sinkhole, and he's never going to go back to the sinkhole, and the White Walkers destroy that werewood, so it's never going to happen again. That'd be one thing. But if he's able to time travel at Winterfell, you know, he can just time travel anytime. Like go home, jump in a bath, time travel. So much revolves around second sons, younger sons. Aeron, Bran, Daemon, the Rogue Prince. Do you think George R. Martin is comfortable with younger brothers' point of views? I'm trying to remember. So George R. R. Martin, he doesn't have a brother, but he was the younger sibling. I think he um, has an older sister, and so I think his father, his mother, he was two sisters, um, and I think they're both older. But he, I feel like he must have some sort of younger sibling insecurity or something, or he somehow is able to relate to that. But I can't, when you read Theon, even though George R. R. Martin writes that he was always had a great relationship with his sister, it's like it's hard to read Theon and be like, what are you doing here? Like, why do you have such a jealousy rivalry with your sisters? So I think that he must be relating to it somehow, or he's just remembering a time when he was a kid. Because kids, I mean, we all have our insecurities when we're kids, and uh, like when I was young, I had a massive insecurity about my height, because I was like 14 and 6'5", and I didn't get much taller than that. Like I'm like 6'5 3/4", like, but I hated being that tall when I was 14. Later on in life, you're like, oh, actually, this is a big advantage. But I still feel and remember that insecurity. So like George R. R. Martin, he probably had some insecurity about being a younger sibling when he was younger, and he just kind of remembers it until later. He's like, um, until he just remembers that he was a guy, and his father's only son, and probably got plenty of advantages by itself. George owes us a buck. Without his fans, he'd be a rather random Santa Claus looking dude. It's true. It's true. Carmine has arrived. He's finished his calzone. Of course, this was probably like an hour ago, so I don't even know. Um, Implication from George that the diehard fans waiting 10 years are not interested in his other projects was ridiculous. What else do we have? Yeah, I mean we're interested. We're interested in his projects, but you know, I listened to after George's announcement. I like went online and I tried to see what kind of like more casual um, fantasy fans were saying, and they kind of spun it more positive, and they're like, oh, we're gonna have these Dunk and Egg stories, which are really great, and we're gonna have this series, which is really great, so that's going to be really great. And they're like, oh, we're disappointed about Winds of Winter, but at least we got this other stuff. And so maybe as the diehard fans like just aren't in the same mindset as everybody else, but at the same time, like wouldn't they have been disappointed with Game of Thrones and stuff like that? Um, so I think people were just excited. Like content is content is content, and these are exciting new shows that are coming out. So I don't know. Um, how did Littlefinger know Robert was going to choose Ned? I think he sent the catspaw, but why? Um, I mean, I think it's pretty. I mean, Robert Ned is the only other person that Robert like trusts in the world. It was no secret that Robert and Ned were very close, and you know and were fostered under John Aaron. So if we're going with that relationship, you've got John Aaron, the father figure, being chosen as hand. It's the only person that Robert trusts. John's gone. The next logical person is Ned. I mean, this is Ned, a character who has a child named John and a child named Rob. Um, it's they're part of the club. So I think it just makes sense. I mean, would Littlefinger think that like he would have chosen Tywin or something to be hand? I think Littlefinger spent enough time observing people's character to figure out that this would happen. Um, and I'm also trying to think like, does he even need to know that Littlefinger is going to choose Ned? Because he can set things up on the trip, right? Like if Littlefinger's just trying to cause chaos and put people against each other, he doesn't necessarily need he only needs to plan the catspaw after Robert decides to go north. So, and that's like, a long trip, whether it be 5 weeks or whatever, or, a month. A month is what the show said, but a month is about how long it would take maybe to get north. I mean, he's got a month to plan it. Had Robert chosen somebody else, he would have planned a different way to have people to create chaos. Um, is the Raven Network way too efficient in Westeros? Absolutely, absolutely. Oh my gosh, you could never have that in real life. What are you talking about? I mean, the fact that like all this like these cages filled with ravens and one person managing it. No, like a raven for every castle, and there's no way that like a maester would be able to do all of the things that a maester is able to do. Like, just think about Lewin's job, okay? Lewin, that motherfucker, he's got it won. Like, educate all the fucking kids, right? That by itself, okay, is more than a full-time job, okay? You probably need several. I mean, maybe he's just educating the boys or something. I don't know. Maybe their schooling is, but already the fact that he's coming up with lesson plans and like educating all of the children, that's a job by itself, okay? Then he's doing medical situation. He's doing medical stuff for, I imagine, all the higher ups at court, right? That's going to take all day. Like, people in Middle Ages were sick all the fucking time. All the time. Like, that's what people forget, is that a good a quarter of your life, a good 25% of your life, you're in bed getting over like pneumonia or something. Like, you're sick all the time. Now maybe he's got really good treatments or whatever, but like the fact that he's a doctor for all of these people. And then you're going to say, okay, on top of like being a teacher for all the fucking kids, and then to be a doctor for everybody at fucking court, you are going to manage taking care of 150 fucking ravens or 200 fucking ravens in your rookery, like feeding them every goddamn day and making sure that they're healthy, reading their messages, putting them in cages and figuring out like what's going on. Like, it's so ridiculous. This is something that would take honestly, you'd need like a team of like 50 people to 100 people to manage this kind of operation just at Winterfell. One dude? No. Like, it's absolutely laughable. It's laughable that one person could do any of these things. Plus, he's like doing side projects. He's like doing sun measurements, and like he's writing notes and sending them to the Citadel and stuff like that. Like that's ridiculous. There's no way. There's just no way any of that would happen with one person. Like, oh gosh, hilarious. What do you think? What do you think is the explanation for Daenerys knowing exactly what to do with the dragon eggs from a sign of Ice and Fire science fiction point of view? Um, yeah, it's got to be like mental manipulation, telepathy from Quaithe, right? He, there's no reason that Daenerys at that moment would know to like put those eggs in a fire, and that she would survive the pyre, and after like floating in a bath. The idea, I think something is happening is she's floating in a bath. Somebody's telepathically like affecting her. She's able to do some sort of pyrokinesis, and have some sort of telepathic connection to the eggs to hatch them. That's the only explanation I have that's going on. That her pyrokinesis is protecting her, because we know that she's not actually fireproof. She gets burned all the time. So she's, so the pyrokinesis is keeping the fire, creating a bubble around her, protecting her. And then somehow another bit of telepathy is causing the dragons to hatch from the eggs. It's kind of some. I mean, I can see something similar happening with Aeron at the Battle of Blood, because like his telepathic gift is, perhaps like also creating a like some sort of bubble around them so that the Krakens don't like kill Euron's ship, because Euron's going to be in the middle of like this bloody Kraken battle, and the only thing that like could protect them is some sort of telekinetic bubble protecting them or something. So I think there was some sort of pyrokinetic telekinetic bubble around her while she's awakening the dragons from the egg. It's the only thing I can come up with. Before you're just in you know Harry Potter, it was magic kind of territory. You know. Do, 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 do. Dark-haired Rhaenys makes Strongs less weird. Yeah, we have to like re-look at everything in Fire and Blood when we get to it. But what's amazing with Fire and Blood is how little we're actually given on physical descriptions of people. Like, we actually don't know that Rhaenyra's children look like Strongs. Like, there's nothing in the text that tells us that Rhaenyra's children look like Strongs, because we don't know what Strongs look like. We know what Rhaenyra's children look like. We don't know what Strongs look like. We just, so that's the thing. Is so, yeah, Rhaenyra would be, but I don't think she's, I don't know. I never perceived her as being Rhaenys having dark hair. You'd think they would have mentioned something. PJ already came out of the closet as being a CIA agent. Well, if you really want to get technical about things, so agents are not in the CIA. CIA agents are the assets in the country. CIA officers are the ones that work for the CIA. So that's actually different. CIA agent is actually like a misnomer that comes out of movies. But so CIA officers work by recruiting agents, recruiting assets to get them information in the country. So Rainey says black hair. Yeah, not that I know of, but it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting if she did. I mean, we'll have to go through it again. There's nothing in the text so far. I mean, I want to double check this just because now you're making me question myself. But there should be nothing. Let's see. It says here. What? She had black hair? What? What is this? Oh. Okay. Shit. This is a retcon. No wonder I got it wrong. Okay, so in Princess and the Queen, when this originally came out, Rhaenys had silver hair, and now she's described to be having black hair in Fire and Blood. What a retcon. What a retcon. It wasn't even necessary, because like I said, it wasn't a fucking Lannister. Oh my gosh. Oh man. This is ridiculous. What a okay. She was retconned. She was retconned to have black hair. I'm just, I do think that the retconning of having the Baratheons be secretly Targaryens and having them like interconnected is really weird to start with. But like everything with Rogar Baratheon and or at least Baratheon and everything before that, like it's all very very weird that the retcon that George R. R. Martin added to make Baratheons Targaryens is kind of odd. But but yeah, the fact that like Rhaenys has been retconned to have black hair. Now I've got to find this fucking quote from from Fire and Blood. Let me see if I can. See, when I went into detail, this must have been before I. Oh, jeez. This is going to be tough to find. Because there's too much. There's too, there's too many Rhaenys, and uh, there's too many hair, black and hair. Let's see here. Here we go. Princess Rhaenys was born on the 11th day of the 7th day of the 7th moon of the year, which the Septons judged to be highly auspicious. Large and fierce, she had the black hair of her Baratheon mother and the pale violet eyes of her Targaryen father, the firstborn child of the Prince of Dragonstone. Many hailed her as next in line for the Iron Throne after her father. When Queen Alayne held her in her arms for the first time, she was heard to call the little girl our queen-to-be. Huh. Fucking retcons. But that's good to know. It's good to know. I mean, I've only been using like the show picture of her in my video, but man, I would have been embarrassed. Would have been embarrassed had I put the wrong picture. Da, da, da. Okay. Thank you, Cole Martin from Japan. Okay. Um, let's see here. Did Time Traveling Bran write the pink letter? I mean, he has to be if he's um if it's forward planned at all kind of situation, then I guess he's responsible for everything. But man, I would I would want I would want it to be Mance or Stannis or some human being in the short term. But I do think it might be the situation that all right, I'm catching up pretty well here. Um, was this about this? This was probably about me getting Rhaenys' hair color wrong. The Strongs were not Targaryen looking. I mean, that's not very. I mean, specific, but yeah, we're talking specifically about whether Luke and Jace and everybody should have um, who their father is. Like, yeah, they don't have silver hair. We know that, but we don't know that they look like Strong. And so this is the big thing is whether or not one of their parents is it Breakbones, Harwin Strong, or is it Kristen Cole, or is it somebody else? You know? I mean, the show is probably just gonna go straight. It's break bones, but I think it's an interesting idea to think that actually the children, um, or at least one of the children, is Kristen Cole, and that Kristen Cole is like actually preventing his own son from being on the throne. That's a much more fascinating idea. But like I said, there's a lot of stuff in the text that makes it so that Harwin Strong cannot be the father. So I don't know who the father would be if you're removing Harwin Strong. Um, you know, who's next? You know, and if the hair color says it's not Laenor, and the timing wise and Harwin's injury makes it so that it can't be Harwin. Um, is it Kristen Cole? Is it somebody else? Who knows? Who knows? Um, has a warg ever interacted with a dragon? I don't think there's any difference between a warg and a dragon rider. I think they're the same thing. So one of the big things is, especially in Night Flyers, is there's this talk about um, people having telepathic, like residual telepathic ability beyond their specialty. And this is the big reason why at the end of Night Flyers, Royd Eris is able to um, actually contain his mother. So she's a telekinesis master, and Royd has the same DNA because he's a cross gender clone. This is some, if you haven't read Night Flyers, this is some great sci-fi junk here. Okay, so Royd Eris's mother has is a telepath who has uploaded her consciousness into a crystal and is now like telekinetically killing everyone on the ship. But because Royd Eris is the cross-gender clone of her that she was going to have be her lover, and she ended up dying before she could actually like bang herself. Um, he's got the same DNA, meaning he has the same innate like uh, talent, but he uses telepathy to like bind her, like in a emotional, I don't know, sense. He's not using telekinesis to bind her. He's using like some sort of telepathy to like keep her consciousness contained um, uh, in the crystal, because he ends up like dying and his consciousness goes into the crystal. So his like telepathic consciousness is like fighting with her telepathic consciousness for control in the same way that Bran takes over Walder's brain and like pushes Walder to the back, And so the idea is that telepathy is telepathy, it's telekinesis is telekinesis. It's all just talent. And so I don't think wargs, skin changers, dragon riders, there's any difference. Like, I think there's some like fantasy people that like get into like, oh no, there's a big difference between what a skin changer and a warg is. It's like, no, it's just like levels of talent. Like Verimir Sixskins says very easy, like very well, that like wolves are one of the easiest animals to take over. And so if you're a weak telepath, you can only take over wolves, thus you're a warg. If you're a strong telepath, you can take over many types of animals, and so you're a skin changer. But it's the same thing, it's just a degree of scale. So like Dany's just a telepath who can take over dragons. That's it. There's no fundamental difference between a warg and a dragon rider. They're all just telepaths. But people are asking me this question about it because like, why is Time Traveling Bran, like why in Night Flyers does gravity inhibit telekinesis? And some people are like, well, that's another force, so it's distracting the telekinesis person. It's like, well, it's also, the gravity is also like inhibiting like telepathy. Like Royd Eris's like telepathic ability to bind his own mother is also inhibited by gravity, and so he has to, hey, how's it going?
By the way, I got your Facebook message to hop in whenever. I
Oh
always
yeah.
get it so late, like an hour after the fact.
Oh, no worries.
I have a question, by the way, from my buddy Russell, who This is the only person I've ever met who's actually taller than you.
Oh, really?
He is he's 6'6". He's an inch taller
Mm.
than you.
Yeah, or
It
like
counts.
a quarter inch. Yeah.
Of course. And he asked me a question. Of course, you're the ice and fire master. I'm going to toss it to you. He asked me, he goes, why does Ygritte get visibly nervous when Jon tells her his name? Why does she say Jon Snow is an evil name? I don't know if being a bastard is necessarily an evil thing in wildling culture. Even the story of the Rose of Winterfell by Bael the Bard talks about a bastard becoming a great figure, but I could be wrong. That's his.
All
That's
right,
his thing.
let's bring this up real quick. So there's going to be a Clash of Kings John thing, right? And
Yes, that's. I actually checked. I think it's John 4, I believe.
hmm. Yeah, I'm Jon Snow. She flinched. An evil name, a bastard name, he said. My father was Lord Eddard Stark. Um, Maybe it's just that's a good question. I wonder um, if it's as simple as snow is not a great concept to uh, to wildlings. The girl watched him warily, but Stone Snake gave him a mordant chuckle. It's the captive supposed to tell things, remember? The ranger thrust a long branch into the fire. Not that she will. An evil name. Or maybe John means something in wildling. I would guess that it's just something to do with snow being a or that's the thing. She should expect that it's a south of the wall name, so that shouldn't make her flinch, unless she's like feigning the flinch, and just trying to mess with John. Maybe she just doesn't like the term snow. Like, why would you have the last name Snow? Who likes snow? Snow is cold and causes a rough time. Because the wildlings shouldn't really have any care about bastards. Though I don't even know if a wildling can have a bastard. If they're married through the process of stealing and rape, like, can anybody actually be a bastard? I mean, I suppose like consensual non-stolen sex might produce something, but if the sex was actually consensual, um, but yeah, no, I don't have any. That's a really good question, but I don't have a very good answer. Like, there's no reason that they should not like bastards. There's it just must be the name Snow or something. Because Mance himself isn't Mance himself a bastard? Um, shouldn't he have the last name Snow, but instead he takes the last name Raider? I don't know. It's funny.
It was probably supposed to be meant some kind of storyline that George probably gave up on. There's always
Yeah, I
hints of
mean,
that.
I do have to say that if of all the storylines in the entire book, that don't kind of fit with the narrative of the rest, is Jon Snow's Clash of Kings adventures. Like, they just don't, like, just the way that Corin starts talking about like the old powers rising. Let Mormont know. Like, that doesn't fit with anything else that we know about Mormont, or like why that would help. Like, if Mormont got the message like the old powers are rising, what the fuck does Mormont do with that information? Like, what are you talking about? Like, so I do kind of get this idea that a little bit that George wasn't thinking it through on a Clash of Kings John. That he just needed, John to meet the wildlings and kind of come down. But Corin just says a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense. And this is after having done an analysis of the Corin chapters, like, quite a bit, and like, it's just I just don't think they really, like, it only fits that like Corin wants to be captured, but then why is he like insisting on sending these like ambiguous messages about old powers and stuff? It's just weird. Um, I don't know. I don't. This question as it could Bran be involved in Summerhall? I don't think so, just because it's before his birth. But a lot of people are really onto this idea that Bran is like in charge of everything historically and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, but um, a wildling that hates snow is in for a very long, shitty life. I mean, I do grant that like there's snow north of the wall, but it's not like in the show. Like the show makes north of the wall look like a frozen tundra, like you're on top of a glacier at all fucking times, and it's like that's not what north of the wall is in the book. Like there's trees, there's forests, they farm, Craster farms, it's not that bad. It's not fucking, it's not Arctic Circle kind of thing. Um, Thanks for awesome content. Do you think George R. R. Martin is making a statement about free will with time traveling Bran? When Bran changes the timeline, it seems like characters have no control over events of free. I think definitely that's what George R. R. Martin is thinking. I think he's talking about how if if you could replay the timeline and everybody does things the same way, that would say that we don't have free will. However, and this goes for almost any time travel story, because like if you were to actually time travel, like things and people had free will, it would be different every time. But and it'd just be chaos. But the at the same time, like Jamie and Brienne's story is definitely about free will and definitely about um, where things go in the future. And I think the only thing you can do is then just like get rid of time travel. Like even if free will is an illusion, at least the illusion can be maintained if time travel isn't around. But you're absolutely right that these are fundamentally contradictory ideas. Just like in life, we have these fundamentally contradictory ideas that we think we have free will, but at the same time, all of us kind of believe that cause and effect are a thing. Some people even believe in the Bible and prophecy and end days and all of that mumbo jumbo. But the even if you don't, though, even if you're an atheist, you kind of believe that like cause and effect happen, and so therefore we don't really have free will. But the but we all kind of think we have free will anyway, and these ideas go against each other. So yeah, in every way, the Brienne and Jamie story goes against Bran's time travel. They are fundamentally opposed, and I think that George R. R. Martin is making that statement about life in general, like is that we have these fundamentally opposed ideas. Um, oh, can I talk about my time in Jordan? Yeah, I mean it's tough. It's a very broad question, but Jordan was a wonderful country. I have really fond memories of living there. Uh, it's very sunny, and the people are very friendly, and the food is very good. Um, uh, it was a really nice time. Um, I highly recommend everybody go to visit Jordan at some point and spend some time. But it's I don't know what to say about it because it's so broad.
Is
But
Jordan the place where you met Q's son?
yes, yeah, it is. Yeah.
For the people who don't know this, we did a Picard episode review with Phil the Issues guy, and Preston, as always, drops the bombshell that he actually met. If you've seen Star Trek: The Next Generation, Q, the actor, what's his name, John Delancey.
Yeah.
Preston met John Delancey's son, Q2, also who's also in Star Trek Voyager, I believe.
Yeah, he's an
Just
episode.
dropping bombs.
Yeah, well, it's not that big of a bomb. I've talked about it before, but yeah, he was just he was just doing a Fulbright, and I knew I was acquaintance with him, and so we were at some parties. We talked about refugees and things like that. Um, Jordan has a lot of different types of refugees, and it's very interesting because you obviously you have your Palestinian refugees, but the Palestinian refugees are broken into two types because you've got your West Bank refugees and your Gazan refugees, and they are legally different entities and treated differently in Jordan, because Jordan used to have the West Bank, and so they say, okay, because we used to have the West Bank, we'll have responsibility and take care of of refugees from the West Bank. But Egypt was given control over Gaza before Israel took it from Egypt, and so they kind of say, well, Gazan refugees aren't our responsibility. Gazan refugees are Egypt's responsibility. So they have different legal status. And then on top of that, you've got a very large gypsy population. You have Syrian refugees. You have Iraqi refugees. There's a lot of interesting stuff. Yeah, but man, yeah, I mean, you head in from the airport and there's all these like colorful tents from the gypsies. Um, I don't even know. They're like they're very different from. I mean, I guess I should be saying Roma, but they're very different. Like even from what we think of like the Roma in Western Europe, but different language and everything. But yeah, yeah, it was an interesting time. The but I don't know. It's just such a broad question. I don't know, Carmine. Do you have anything specific about Jordan that you think is interesting?
I'd never want to visit. That's probably. Hey,
What?
how's Wait, hold on. Maybe I'm thinking Jordan. Maybe I'm mistaking it with something. No, I know Jordan, the country. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm not interested in. Oh no, I ain't going there. Woof. I'm one of the very few Brazilians who doesn't like going to hot places. One of the very few.
You don't like hot places.
Yeah, hot places where it's like always scorching. No, fuck that. Fuck that. My mom, she loves Florida. Me, ooh. No. I'm too afraid of Florida, man, to venture in there for too long.
I love the warmth. I love it. I love warm. I love warm love there. I love the beach. Um,
People don't know this about you, but unfortunately, but you love to travel to all these countries
hmm.
and you eat so much food. Like I'm always amazed. We've had a discussion in private before. I'm always amazed how all the stuff you eat, like it never fucks up your stomach. What did you say? You have like an iron stomach?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like a chicken or the egg thing. Like I've traveled enough that like I've had the bugs, and so now like I don't get sick very much anymore. Um, there's been times though. There was a time where I the worst where like like there was a time where I really felt that I was gonna die, and um, and that was I went to a barbecue place in Quito, Ecuador, and like you know I went to this barbecue place and I love coleslaw. I know a lot of people are like, oh, coleslaw, gross, but I love coleslaw, and I was like, oh, and I ate the coleslaw there. Nobody else ate their coleslaw, and this that night just having like I was having visions and like like Quaith came to me, Marwin, the three-eyed crow. They were all visiting me as I was like vomiting out both ends. And it was just like that was like the most where I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. This is how I die. Um, that's where I felt like I'd made it to the astral plane. Um, so how does Preston know so much about refugees in Jordan? The well, it's the thing is like it's such a huge part of the culture. So um, first of all, Amman's population, it's mostly Palestinian refugees. Like they've moved beyond their refugee status, many of them, because it's now been many generations. But like, you're constantly driving through camps, which are like cities. Like when a camp is there long enough, they just start building houses, and it's still a camp, but it's a part of the city. Um, but so Palestinian Jordanians are just a huge majority of the population now, um, since since they were expelled. And so like Jordanians have a kind of there's some tension. I mean, not as much as you'd think, but like because Jordanians are so welcoming. But there's definitely still like this, oh gosh, like we are Jordanians, like our country is now taken over by Palestinians. Like there's definitely this attitude. Not as much, not it's not as harsh as you think it would be, but like in 1983, like the Palestinians did try to there was a coup and they tried to overthrow the Jordanian government and failed. Like it like and then just going everywhere and it's just being Palestinians like being the majority of the population. Like when you're talking about like somebody taking over your country. I mean, I suppose this happened to Taiwan too. Like a group of people came in and literally took over their country, um, and changed the language and things like that. Or the United States, people come in, but the but yeah, it's really it's it's weird. So it's a huge part of that you still have all of these camps. You still have the UN in charge of schooling a lot of Palestinian refugees with UNRWA and things like that. You still get a lot of aid. Like Jordan asks for a lot of aid because they house all of these refugees, whether it be from Syria, Iraq, Palestine, things like that. So it's you know, so it yeah, it's now, I wouldn't say that Jordanian Bedouins hate the Palestinians. Like, hate is a really strong word. And, like, it's not, it's to hate somebody is very antithetical to the Bedouin um, way of life and mindset of the world. Like, it's against their culture pre-Islam, and it's against Islam to be against the outsider. The outsider is someone that must be welcomed, and you must respect and give gifts to and feed and like house. That is your responsibility as a Bedouin, and it's your responsibility as a Muslim. And so like, yeah, you definitely hear some weird stuff like from them. Don't get me wrong. Like the Bedouins will say stuff like, why did the king need to marry a Palestinian? Like, why couldn't you do something for us? And marry a real Jordanian. But I would never say hate. Like there are a lot of places where people are like, oh yeah, we hate, they hate them. But I would never say that the Bedouins hate the Palestinians. It's just so antithetical to the Bedouin culture to hate an outsider. The outsider is somebody that you welcome. It's someone that and I don't want to say that it's all like the Jordanian welcoming in people is not all purely like you're giving. Like the idea is that when you welcome someone in, they are your captive, and they are not able to cause any trouble while they are in your company. So say a stranger comes into your town. You don't know what the fuck that stranger's doing. He can cause trouble. But if you invite him over to dinner and you feed him, one, he's not going to hate you because you fed him. And two, you know exactly what he's doing. He's having dinner at your place. So he's not out there causing trouble. And so there is a bit of like mistrust that goes into being welcoming. So there is another side to it. I don't want to say that like being welcoming is 100% pure, but it does come from like like a completely different mindset about things. But yeah, it's interesting stuff though. Like about
I never
this.
knew that. That's actually cool.
Yeah, but I've learned a lot though. Like as I went from my 20s into my 30s, and keep in mind I've got a somewhat abrasive personality. Carmine knows me offline. You get hints of this in the.
Wait a minute. No, you don't. What are you talking? I'm not even making a joke. No, you're the most friendliest guy I know. What do you mean?
Well, I don't know, but I certainly knew that like in my 20s when I didn't have very much money, um, uh, people would be like, "Oh, that Preston, he's an asshole." And then when I was in my 30s and I started having parties, and people would come over and they drink my beer and I'd eat my food, you'd find that people stop talking trash about you because it's really hard to talk trash about somebody who's fed you and like given you a bunch of free shit. So this is the whole thing also about like Bedouins. Like if it's a little bit of a bribe, like it's really tough. Like there's a lot of times where Bedouin or Jordanian, Palestinian, they have spent like you come over for dinner and you have like Mansef, and Mansef, buying that much lamb and everything, that's a lot. That's sometimes it's like a week's wage that they're spending to serve you dinner because it gives them honor. But also, yeah. And so it's really tough to like speak ill of somebody after they spent a week's wage to give you dinner,
It's very cool of them. Very cool.
Yeah.
By the way, Glidus, I think, sent you a super chat. You should probably
He said,
read it.
show my feet. I forget what he wanted me to do there.
No, no. What are you actually gonna do? What are
I
you
don't
doing?
know. What am I doing? Got the foot. But yeah,
Thank God he just said feet.
I know. He's like guessed right is real to a point. It's true. Yeah, it's interesting. But yes, um, I was just wondering what you were doing in Jordan, especially since you once mentioned that you were in the Ruhr region, where I'm from, and we don't really see any tourists there. Thanks for answering. Oh, you're actually Rorani. That's very interesting. So I no, I mean my job was there. So I was stationed there in the Middle East for a while with the State Department. Like, um, I can't talk about what I was doing there. It's not CIA officer stuff, Glidus, I was doing auditing work. But the reason I had a lot of interest in the lore is because one, I spent some time around the Dead Sea, and I went to Jerash, and you see really dark, uh, like African looking people in that region, and you're kind of like, huh, this is really weird. Like I went to a Palestinian school, and there's a blonde, blue-eyed Palestinian kid sitting next
What
to
was that?
a blonde, blue-eyed Palestinian kid sitting next to a completely black African-looking Palestinian kid. You know, and it just kind of shakes your idea of like what is the Middle East and what does it mean to be Arab and stuff like this. These are two Palestinians. One is blonde haired and blue eyed. One is black African, like completely. Um, and you're like, how did this happen? Because even from an American perspective, they're like, oh, in the Middle East, they're all brown or something. You're like, no, that's not really the case at all. It's a really ethnically diverse, racially diverse area. Now, the interesting thing is, I had a friend who was a Peace Corps volunteer who lived down in Rohr, and she had some really interesting stories about the region because she had a project in which she wanted to. Um, there were a lot of disabled people that couldn't get to school. Um, like the children just they were either in a wheelchair or crutches or whatever, and they were having a really tough time to get to school. So her idea was that she wanted to organize a minibus that would go around and pick up all of these kids, these disabled kids, and get them to school. Okay, well that's fine. You can get a donation to get a bus, but that's not sustainable. And when you start talking about aid programs, the big thing about aid versus development is the issue of sustainability. Because you can give somebody aid, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But the idea is teach a man to fish kind of idea. So in order to make it sustainable, she needed buy-in from uh, the central government in Amman. So she goes to Amman and she gets like an actual meeting with, you know, a person who's like in charge of like public transportation. And she goes in and she's like, oh, like, um, yeah, we just need a little bit of money per year to finance like the upkeep of this like van that would go around and pick up disabled kids and bringing them to school. And she said that the woman in the office is just like, the lore, no, no. Like, and I'm like, oh god, like, and it was because like the lore, like there's definitely a tribal hierarchy, and this is not news to anybody, but like the lore are like not high on the tribal hierarchy list. And so she was just like, no, we're not gonna give you any money to like help your disabled kids get to school. And she was just devastated. She was devastated because she'd gotten all of this work and all this buy-in from like the people in the town. They were like, yeah, no, we think this is, she had to go around to everybody and be like, oh no, we think this is a really good idea. Okay. Like, because it took a little bit to be like, okay, well, these kids are disabled. What do they need school for? They're never going to be able to do anything. So like getting people to get to the point where they're like the people in the village were like, yeah, okay, let's get this van. Like took a long time. It took her months to get everybody on board because she has to talk to, the mayor and the tribal leaders and the sheikh and everybody. They have to get everybody on board. Then she goes to Amman and she gets shot down, um, which was really sad. And after that, I think she left Jordan after that. She didn't want to finish her tour. She was really it was heartbreaking, really. But it made me just think about the Rouhani. It's also like the Roar is so interesting to pronounce as well. I keep butchering it, and I'm sorry, but like there's a letter in Arabic that's kind of like gargling, and so like that's the the tribal name Rouhani, and I'm very bad at saying it, but that was her story. It was very sad and disappointing because the Rouhani, like they're really they're shit on. They're shit on, and they shouldn't be, and it's really sad, and it's pretty tough. From Preston Ringrose came for Song of Ice and Fire staves for the random talks of real life adventures. Yeah, yeah. The there's some fun stuff. This is the fun stuff. I don't know if anybody cares about all this, but you know. Um, Lawrence of Arabia knocking up local girls and goats. So there was a so I did have a friend on the second aspect of that. I had another Peace Corps friend who was living in a village, and when I say village, like these villages are sometimes like 20,000 people. Like they're not necessarily small, but he was living in a village where um, there was one guy in the village that everybody knew as the guy who'd go out and like have sex with the sheep, and they called him Abu Lail, which means father of the night. And he was just kind of like the one freak in the village where they're like, oh my god, like we know he goes out and like has sex with like goats and sheep at night, and he's like an embarrassment. And so they all called him Abu Lail. But it was the only example I've ever heard of anybody like having sex with goats and sheep was this one character in this one village. And so they're like, Abu Lail. Because obviously the rest of the village is like, oh my gosh, so um, Sodom and Gomorrah is located in Jordan. It used to be, they or where they it is according to legend. So the Dead Sea was called the Salt Sea, but they used to call it the Sea of Sodom. And so the idea is that somewhere in the south, perhaps in the Ruhr region, Sodom and Gomorrah was located, and that but um, there's no real proof of these places ever existing. Like, I mean, maybe if you wanted to be, maybe they're a salt trading outpost or something. But there's some weird stuff. So in the fourth century, the Byzantines, um, Eastern Rome, would go like a lot of the Christians like were like, huh, I want to find all of these like religious sites that are in the Middle East. So I'm going to go to the Middle East and like find them. And so you had all these tourists, these Byzantine tourists that like all of a sudden arrived in like, Palestine um, area. And they, they come with their money and they're like, okay, show me, Lot's cave. Show me where Jesus was born. And the people at the time are like, yeah, right here. Give me some money, like, and so you've got all these like ridiculous spots like Lot's cave and like Noah, like not knowing where Noah was, but um, 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 like very like I mean, obviously in Bethlehem, you have where Jesus was born, and all through Jerusalem, there's like 7 churches that are supposed to be where Mary was born or died. Mount Nebo in Jordan, all sorts of the baptism site. There's several places on the Jordan River that people claim is the baptism site and stuff like that. And these people just pulled it out of the air. They're just like, fine, no, it was here, fine. And so like they established it as like the place where these things occurred, and then they just kind of went with it. Um, let's see. I think a super chat was lost. Let's see here. All the way from the beginning. How does Chad Summerchild think A Song of Ice and Fire should end? Chad Summerchild believes that Jon Snow should kill the Night King and marry and then fulfill all prophecy and be king. And you know, rule over a new golden age of prosperity. How did Lord of the Rings end? That's essentially like how he wants it. Yeah. I think Glidus, now with regards to rap schemes, I think he's talking about, are you talking about like Channel 5 News kind of stuff? Like I need a rap scheme to be like one of Channel 5's like cast of characters? Cave of the Seven Sleepers. I have to look up this one. Oh, Ephesus and Companions Cave, medieval legend. The group of youths hid inside the cave in the city of Ephesus. Okay, I see. These okay, they hid there to avoid Roman persecution. Or yeah. There's a lot of there's so much of this religious tourism, um, where it's just you had a random fucking cave and you're just like fine, yeah, go for it. I mean, they even do it in Greece where you can go to Aphrodite's like birth point or something, or maybe that's in Cyprus. Like, come on. Um, oh, you turned one of my theories into a rap. I'll have to look at this. Glidus is secretly a pretty anti-theory guy. Um, so he kind of is not really on board with most of the theories. Um,
And you have to admit, I don't blame him. Most of the theories are just basically this person is secretly this person.
oh, it's true. I don't think many of them are very fun or interesting. What does it add to the story to make um, Mance Rayder Rhaegar or whatever, or the Night's King Rhaegar? I don't know. Um,
Who could have that theory?
um, let's see. How would you argue against Russia didn't invade Ukraine when Trump was president? Hence, Biden is weak. It's his fault. Appreciate your work. Well, the main thing is that uh, uh, Putin. First of all, we know that like Putin had a good relationship with Trump. He didn't fear Trump. But and if he did fear Trump, he wouldn't have uh, did all the horrible stuff in Syria um, during the same time. But I think when you're talking about specifically Ukraine, like why didn't he invade Ukraine during the Trump administration? I think it has to do with it. Trump was already carrying the water for Putin. Trump was already weakening NATO. If Putin is being correct that like okay, we're this is a preemptive invasion of Ukraine because Ukraine is going to be joining the EU and joining NATO, and we want to prevent this, and this is our main thing, which is what Putin claims is his motivation. that this is NATO expansion. Um, Trump was already like carrying the water of Putin. He was destroying NATO. He was he was causing NATO allies to like break up. Claiming that he was going to pull out of NATO himself. The United States he claimed he claimed he was going to pull out of NATO during this time. Plus, like the EU is doing really poorly at the time because of Brexit and stuff like that. There wasn't this like why invade Ukraine when Trump was doing your job for you? You know, like it looked like NATO was gonna like 4 more years of Trump, like NATO might not have been a thing. Like and why would you need to invade Ukraine? Because the invasion of Ukraine is to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. But if NATO is going to fall apart because of Trump, why would you need to? So I mean that's the argument of why Putin didn't do it under Trump. But no, Biden was not scared of Trump. If he was scared of Trump, he wouldn't have bombed Syria and killed all of those people in Syria. So there's definitely no fear of Trump. I mean, he did that right after Trump was elected. I mean, keep in mind with Syria. So it's mainly that NATO NATO under Trump was falling apart. So why would you need to do something to prevent um, Ukraine from joining an organization that was falling apart? But that's the idea. Um,
By the way, Preston, if you're going into spicy politics, you're going
oh
to
yeah,
get the argument from conservatives that Putin never invaded when Trump was around, and that's the main one they're going to dish at you.
yeah, yeah.
You're aware.
Right. He didn't invade. He didn't invade. Now I'm trying to remember when the. Let me just make sure because I want to check on the Donbass region. And when that was invaded, it might have still that might have been under. Yeah, no, that was still under Obama for the Donbass region. But yeah, and I mean he didn't invade, but the point of invasion is to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. Did I lose you, Carmine? Let me think here.
I'm here.
Oh, I got another call.
Mm.
Hmm. Oh. Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Can't believe it. It finally happened.
It finally happened. I know I remember way back the first time you tried to call in and it just didn't
I know.
occur.
I
It
know.
was just it was an embarrassment for everybody.
Yeah. Mostly me.
What's been going down?
Ah, fuck all. I've been working on this stupid thing. Videos, you've heard of them.
Yeah, I think so. What is the next Glidus video that's coming out?
Oh geez. Well, season 6, episode 8 will happen at some point.
Okay, so you're
Still
doing
working
spit
through season
takes.
6. Yeah, still doing that shit. But I every year I do something for April Fools.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, that's
So
coming.
that'll probably happen first. Yeah, it snuck up on me.
Oh Jesus. Oh Jesus. Yeah, I mean, I hope you get it done in time.
Oh, I will.
Now
The
is
last ones came out at like 11 p.m. in the last possible time zone. Where like April Fools was only a thing for a sliver of time at like one piece of land in the world. Like in Kiribati, it was still April Fools for an hour.
so I was talking to a German friend of mine last night and I asked him about April Fools and if the Germans do anything and he's like, no, we've heard about it but we don't do anything for
Well, of course not. Yeah.
it. So I guess it's an anglophone kind of country kind of thing, but like, but I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested in Brits. Do you guys do April Fools? I don't know. I mean, in many ways, the Aussies will take on a lot of
I
American
just looked
stuff.
it up,
Or
and the first, okay, it's disputed, but there's an association between April 1st and foolishness in Chaucer.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, way back like Canterbury
Yeah.
Tales. Like there's an
Yeah.
April Fools. Huh.
Isn't that
Well.
crazy?
It
Wow.
predate. I just thought it was some sort of American stupidness, like
Yeah, it sounds like an American
yeah.
thing.
I mean, because
That's
like
crazy.
they, so sometimes maybe not so much recently, but a lot of Aussie friends kind of said that Australians in many ways act more like Americans because there was less Australian media to consume.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah, we
Brits
didn't
always
have
had their
much
own
in that
media.
industry.
Yeah, and so like you were constantly watching American movies much more than Brits did, and so
Yeah.
like you get these kind of similar ideas, and so
I mean, what really do we have as like movie exports? We had Crocodile Dundee and Baz Luhrmann, and that's it.
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I'm trying to remember anymore. Does Mad Max count? Uh,
I guess it does.
no, I do remember the Sydney Games, and there was
The Olympics.
yeah, the Olympics, and I remember the closing ceremony was they had these floats of everything Australian, and it was like a bananas and pajamas float, and there was a no, I'm serious, and
Bananas and pajamas is Australian? Really? I didn't know that.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
I didn't know it until I saw that. And then there was bananas and pajamas float, and then there was a whole float for Elle Macpherson. Like she was just sitting on a float, like waving. Sometimes, like I wonder if this is it's funny enough to like bring up because it's like it was interesting and sad at the same time. Like it was kind of like I don't know if you remember the London games and how they had like this huge thing of everything Brit, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
god, they have so much. Like fuck,
Yeah.
like David Bowie, Beatles, like One Direction, like it just kept going and going, and then yeah, bananas and pajamas. Um, oh my god, let me see here if I can.
By the way, Glidus, thank you so much for dropping in. The spicy politics was good, was intense.
Oh, you think it's going to turn down? No, I'm here to turn it up.
Oh.
Oh gosh. Oh no, this is okay, guys. All right, let me see if I can. Let's see here.
So Preston, you've been watching the Olympics the past 2 weeks. What have you noticed in that time?
Oh, I haven't watched.
I really like the bananas in pajamas float.
All right, let's see. Here we have the Sydney closing ceremonies. This is like a fucking embarrassing. This is like just.
Yeah. It's great.
And they have
It's a
crocodiles
celebration
dancing
of
too.
our
That's so cool. That's so
Oh.
cool.
Oh my gosh.
He's on a giant hat. Oh man, that's super. That's super cool.
I wish this wasn't. Oh, those others.
Oh my god.
Men at work. It was yeah. All right, now I'm gonna get copyright striked.
Yeah, they're gonna come for you.
Oh my lord. Oh lord, oh lordy, lordy, lord. But yeah. No, apparently there's a whole generation of little girls named Kylie because of Kylie Minogue.
Yeah.
But these sorts of things just happen in cycles. I
have news. I know a Khaleesi. I think she's 10 years old.
You know a Khaleesi?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yep.
That's so sad.
It's really sad.
I don't know her, but the guy, the CEO of the network I was in on YouTube, he named his daughter Khaleesi, and I know this because I was watching one of his live streams and she comes in and he's like, no, he called her Daenerys. I think her name is Daenerys. He goes, Daenerys, I'm busy.
Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life. Now there is something about like accents and whether or not something's funny. Like so I watch a lot of Mr. Sunday movies, and let me get my I get a lot. I watch a lot of Mr. Sunday movies, and like his stuff is very funny. But I think most like a lot of it is because like they're both Aussies, and and when they sum stuff up, it's just it's just funnier when it's half done in Australian slang, you know.
That's literally the only reason my channel has any semblance of success. People just they think the way we talk is funny, so they smash that subscribe button.
By the way, you probably haven't seen this because it's not up your alley, but have you seen The Letdown?
No.
Oh. See, if you had a kid, you'd think The Letdown was like hilarious. But that was like the funniest thing I've seen out of Australia recently. I don't know why we go straight to Australia bashing the minute we get on the
as soon as I turn up, it's like, oh, what are they going to talk about? Is it time to talk about theories or their political differences or similarities, or is it time to dunk on the entire Australian nation?
All right. Let's go for the spiciest of politics. Okay, we're gonna
wait, Preston. Before you do that,
oh god.
So Glidus, tell me more about the April Fool's project you're working on.
Gee. Oh, I don't know if I can spoil too much for the chat, but I know that I'm trying to get as many creators in the scene involved as possible, and I don't actually know anyone. I know Swifty and I know Carmine, and like I've talked to Preston twice.
Nice. that means we are now I am going to be best man at your wedding.
That's true.
Yeah.
My three brothers, I just can't choose between them, so I'll have to go with Preston. This is Carmine trying to force me to ask you to be in it, by the way.
Yeah, join me.
Three brothers, like how are you not? Are you like
we've actually all decided that we're not going to choose between best, like we all have to have a different best man. Like there's no way we can do it.
Are you an incredible fighter like Marshall on How I Met Your Mother because you were raised in the house with three brothers?
Well, we don't have the Viking blood as much as they do, but we're all huge, so I could probably beat not as huge as you, I don't think.
Yeah, but I'm still kind of lanky. I mean, people keep in mind like people still steer clear of me because I'm so tall. But
yeah, that's what I've got going on too.
Yeah, but if they knew that there was nothing underneath. No, this was the spicy politics. This is the spiciest. Okay. Glidus doesn't believe Quentin is alive, and he thinks it's a atrocious notion. He thinks that
I can't believe you've actually
only an idiot would believe that Quentin is alive.
That's true.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to even contain the amount of rage I have. You might as well be a Nazi to me. You might as well have voted.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that.
Nazi.
No. Look, I think like you do. I think that George leaves these opportunities open for himself, right? And I think that's what's happened here. And I just err on the side of what we are presented in that case being what's actually happened.
I mean, there's also like the show as well. There's what's happened, and then there's what's happened in the show, right? Like
which is tough to ignore.
Yeah. Like the default, the default position is Quentin is dead. So you've got to it's the burden of proof.
Are you calling me a normie?
I don't know about that. I mean, you're definitely not a normie. Like when you do videos and you like seamlessly like throw in like fan like theory lingo, like
yeah, true.
Like right in there where people are like, what is he fucking talking about? Like,
what time traveling fetus?
Like what time traveling fetus? Like, wait, what about Sir Pounce? Like, I don't It's just you just slid that in there as if like a normie would know what that means, you know? But
Yeah.
yeah.
It's indoctrination.
Yeah. Well,
I like how you dodged the question, by the way.
Oh, which one?
Oh, of being in my stupid April Fool's thing.
Oh, do you want to? Oh, I can be in your April Fool's thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, join
we
us.
did it. Come on, we
Yay! So who's in it so far? It's me and him, and then Swifty.
And Valdir.
Oh, the guy that does the anime Ice and Fire portraits.
Yeah. Oh, and I did it with Galactic Archive. I don't think Preston does.
Which guy?
This dude from I don't even know like how to describe him. He's just like a Song of Ice and Fire intellectual that I met on Discord. He's like, he's just a smart dude.
Yeah. I forgot. Yeah. Glidus is addicted to Discord, which apparently
it is a problem.
Everybody is. It's apparently how things are done these days.
Yeah.
Like among the young, people are like, oh, you want to get something to eat, and everybody's like, okay, let's get on Discord. And I'm like,
don't you two do the
as an old person? I'm just like, how is that done?
No, we don't do the podcast on Discord. Not yet. Someday.
Yeah, you do it over Skype.
Yeah, I know.
You two use AOL Instant Messenger.
Actually, Carmine calls in with a 2400 baud modem, and and I'm like, why aren't you calling me on the phone? He's like, doesn't matter. We got a bulletin board this shit. I was like, okay. It's all BBSs. I've got the good point that Quentin is just as alive as John. It's true. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
at least John comes back.
There's so much going on.
There's so
much going on to telecast. Telegraph John's resurrection, his return to the story in some way or another. I mean, and you argue that there's just as much as Quentin returning to the story, I guess.
I would say that there's a lot telegraphed on Quentin. What I'd say is the weakness is that Quentin was only given 4 chapters, while John has been given 3 dozen.
Oh, geez.
And so George has only killed off a major character once, a major point of view once.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, a major point of view once.
What about Aris Okart?
That's right, man. He was destined.
Oh, that's who you meant.
When I cracked open the Aris Okart chapter, I was like, this guy is gonna make waves. Fucking Vow for Myrcella is the primary story. Myrcella.
Oh, if we can get that working, then everything else falls in line.
The blue rose is fucking Myrcella. Okay, first of all, R plus L equals Myrcella.
The red comet.
Red comet is fucking Myrcella. Yeah.
A shy.
Myrcella. Quaithe is Myrcella. And
oily black stone.
Myrcella is also a faceless man, and she's an oily black stone. Yes. That it is all. It is all. Yeah, I mean, yeah. He's only killed off Ned, and he's only killed off Aris Okart. We've got 2 people killed off. Definitively. I mean, Kat's not dead, right? Yeah, Kat's, okay. I mean, granted, we might not get a POV of her again, but without it just being like brains or whatever. So have you ever seen the joke thing about Hodor's perspective, and it's just Hodor?
Yeah.
It actually made me think like Hodor's chapter actually would be the most brutal, horrible chapter to read, much more so than the Forsaken. It would be like the Forsaken on steroids.
Are you saying that because of how horribly mind invasion is described in the Dance with Dragons prologue?
Yeah. Like he's just like it's just like every moment of his life is like, I want to scream but can't. The only words that come out of Hodor, like the horror of what I see. Like I want to tell everyone, but only a stupid smile comes to my face. You're like, oh fuck,
all this suffering My brain can comprehend, but my mouth cannot pass. And so my woes will never meet the ears of my peers. Hodor, I said.
Ugh, be brutal.
Fuck.
I know.
Why did you open the fanfiction thing with Daenerys when Hodor should clearly be the first one?
Yeah, that would be though I don't know where to put him. I just time is soon for me to fight undead and get killed after 20 odd years of pain.
Do you see Bran staying in that cave for a while through the Winds of Winter, or do you think it'll be like the end of the book or near the start? What do you think?
That's a good point. That's a good question. I do think that like only only a couple more chapters. It's funny because I was thinking about like the structure of like how I would do the Winds of Winter, but then what's practical for the Winds of Winter to actually satisfy George's timeline, and they don't fit, right? Like George's 3-act play like can't work, right? Like
No.
even if you're saying like the Winds of Winter, like maybe we'd get Daenerys landing in Westeros at the end of that book.
And that's if you like pack every single chapter with so many events.
Yeah, because she's got to do Vastoth Rock. She's got to go to Karth. She's got to go back to Marine. She's got to go to Volantis. Now you could say maybe I can cut like Karth and Volantis and just have her do Vastoth Rock,
but that's still so much.
Marine, right? And then have her land.
And that's skipping Pentos as well.
Yeah, mid book, like, but
yeah,
and then you're still shoving in the Dance of the Dragons in half a book, which is against Aegon or whatever. So it makes more sense to have her land at the end and then have her, Dance of the Dragons first half of A Dream of Spring and then somehow get pulled north to the end and deal with the others really fast and then have an epilogue. And then when do you have the Cersei fight and the fucking council and all that? None of it fits.
And then Old Town and like, how does that all? There's so much stuff to deal with.
Well, I was thinking that with Old Town, I would just have Sam like cleaning bedpans, and then have him like scrape grayscale off of John Con.
So you need to allow time for him to get there from, and then I guess you could have him teleport back to Winterfell.
Winterfell, yeah. How do you even deal with Winterfell? Like, if Shireen is supposed to be burned, how do you get Stannis like back up to the wall, which is 3 weeks? Because you have to deal with the battles. Because the battles themselves already steal fucking 25% of the book.
Yeah, there are so many published sample chapters and unpublished ones, and there's so many words, so many pages, so many chapters, and yet still fuck all has happened in the book. And it's like, yes. How long did he think Dance with Dragons was going to be? Like, was this like half the book that he cut if he wanted to get both of the battles in at the end of it? It's insane.
Yeah. No, I think he they must have just said we need to publish something now. And he was just like, fuck, I'd planned on like editing these down or deleting these chapters or something. Just when I think about what was going through his mind, because for the most part, you can kind of look at like Jon, Tyrion, and Dany is a lot of filler. Like if you were really worried about space, you would not have those chapters. You would not have a chapter of Jon like wandering around the north to get a giant, him visiting refugees like south of the wall, demanding that he give them apples. Like you just cut these chapters. Like I understand that some significant stuff happens in these chapters, but a lot of it can happen off screen or whatever. You don't need like Daenerys visiting the Astapor refugees. You don't need, Daenerys worrying about, like her, the Green Grace and all sorts of different stuff. You just don't need it. So I feel like he was writing those chapters fast to fill up space. Because he felt weird about having a book that had like 4 Daenerys chapters in it or 4 Jon chapters.
Especially after A Clash of Kings only having 5.
Yeah. And so he wanted to fill up some Danny space or something, or I know he was dealing with time issues and everybody arriving at the same time and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I guess you need to put more stuff in her story to make it feel like there's more time passing until Quentin arrives, until Victarion arrives, and so on.
Yeah, and I feel like he wanted to fill space, but then ended up filling too much, and then just didn't know what to do. And so he's just like, fuck, I'm just gonna cut it off. Like there's a lot of things about A Dance with Dragons that feels rushed. Like the only story in A Dance with Dragons that feels really well thought out to me.
He's gonna say Theon everyone.
Is the Watcher chapter? No.
Fuck.
Theon. Fucking Theon. Fine. It's fucking Theon. But that's the only one that really feels like.
Yeah.
The only one that feels well thought out. Like everything else feels like when I say he borrows so much from Fever Dream and just throws in these random ideas. Travel logs with Tyrion, for nothing. The character of Penny. So it's, I don't know. It doesn't feel as careful as A Feast for Crows at all.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of people think Feast for Crows is filler, but I think Feast for Crows is like when you look at the detail of the Ironborn chapters or the Dornish chapters or how much happens to Arya in so little time, or how much happens to Sansa in so little time. I think the Bran chapters are rather careful, fast, but
very fast. Yeah, a lot happens in 3 chapters.
Yeah, but I don't know. And Quentin feels somewhat careful. I guess the fewer the chapters, the more careful it seems. But
that kind of adds up. Which is why the Watcher chapter is the most concentrated.
It is very efficient. Now that I think about it, it's a lot happens in that chapter. Because you got one chapter. He's got
Yeah.
to do one Dornish chapter in this whole book. And I'm gonna make
the Cersei one as well, the Cersei chapter and the Jaime chapter.
You're right. Yeah, so much happens in those as well.
Yeah, so I guess it's a good fate for a character to have fewer chapters, because then just more of the story is. What are we even talking about at this point?
I don't know. We're talking about how fucked George is when he writes. When he's forced to write efficiently. When he's forced to write
he doesn't know how to write.
He
seems like a pretty shit writer.
Didn't Swifty recently do a video on who's a shittier writer, George or Dune Boy?
Dune Boy, Frank Herbert.
Yeah, Frank Herbert.
Yeah, so there's this book called 100 Ways to, what is it? Write poorly well. It's just 100 what not to do's, basically. And he was going through those and seeing which ones of them applied to George or Frank. And I thought it'd be fun to do that with Dave and Dan.
It's funny because that would be very funny. That'd be very funny. I didn't watch that whole video, but I thought the book was interesting, so I was flashing around to see what each chapter was titled.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is one of them was recap the previous books, which I do think is kind of interesting because I was reading how that one guy went down and found George's notes in that Texas library that said that that Benjen is not Cold Hands. At the very beginning, there's a note from his editor saying, "Can you write in some backstory of what just happened?" Because for a cold reader coming in, John has been Lord Commander for 4 or 5 years or 6 years or something, because that's the last time we got a book. You have to stress that this is a few days later. So you better recap what's going on. And so the recap is in there. So there is a recap in A Dance with
I
Dragons.
think it's a good thing to have in a story, especially when you're such a slow writer.
Like maybe if he had released the book the next year, he wouldn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carmine, you still on? He mutes and then.
Yes, I am here. I always mute myself because I don't want background noise too.
We had a question about Raised by Wolves, but
oh my god!
I know you want to do a video on it, but
Glidus, have you been watching Raised by Wolves?
I was gonna do a joke about all this elaborate thoughts I have on it, but I haven't watched a minute of it. I did. I've seen the Alt Shift X video on the first season, so it's fucking weird, right? That's the point of the show.
It's really fucking weird.
It's trippy. It's very trippy. Yeah. If they came out and they said, yeah, this is the prequel to Ice and Fire, to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. This planet, Kepler 22b, is definitely Planetos. I would go, yeah, okay, I'll take it. I'll take it.
The one thing I'll say about it is that like characters go from being okay with everybody doing murder really easily. Like every character has murdered lots of people, and everybody's just like, "Oh, okay, I guess they're our friend now." So we're going to forget that they're a mass murderer. But it's just like consistently because characters keep having change of hearts and switching sides, and so like every time it happens, it's just like, well, a person did kill children, you know, or like a person murdered all of your friends. It's fine, you know.
Something that really bothered me about Westworld is I might be changing the topic a little bit here, but I really disliked how they twisted things just to like make plot hooks, just to keep the audience interested. And it's like, no. Season 1 was cool because of like the genuine interest in philosophical concepts, and there was like a strong story that they had in mind when they started, and then the show did really well, and they was signed on for like a billion more seasons, and then it just became tropey action drivel.
Yeah, it's true because I mean Westworld really fell off a cliff. I mean Westworld always had some logic problems, but they were at least trying thematically on some things. Raised by Wolves, I think what I like about it the most is one, it's really experimental sci-fi wise, but they're never forgetting the thematic elements. Like so there's a lot to do with religion versus atheism versus free will, versus like how ought humanity direct itself is an underlying question, and they do take a lot of care in exploring that on a grand level thematically. I think on an individual level the characters are acting bonkers. They're fucking bonkers, but
right.
Thematically,
so it's kind of like twisting the character matter to suit whatever, like I guess the plot, the themes.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they've forgotten that themes are indeed for 8th grade fridge drawings.
Yes, that's right. 8th grade book reports. But
the funny thing is, the creator is envisioning 5 seasons of this. I'd be grateful if we get a final 3rd season. I don't see where we could go with 5 seasons. It just it feels like they would be stretching everything out a little too far.
But Carmine, they answered a lot of questions last episode, and so you must be happy.
They answered some, but they gave us more. Yeah, and whatever. That's I'll continue watching it. It's just I don't think we can go for 5 fucking seasons of this crap.
Yeah. Have you guys watched Attack on Titan?
Yes, I finished. I read
Attack on the Titans. I've watched like the first like 10 episodes. I haven't.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I watched.
There you go.
When it was first coming out, I watched the first like half season, and then I don't know. I think I was busy at the time. Being how old was I?
It came out, I think, in 2014, maybe 2014, 2015.
Right. Well, I mean, Glidus was only born in like 2019, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Preston pointed something
I
out a
was
while ago.
17. I could have had the time.
There you go. Preston pointed out that like we know a lot of, or maybe me, I know a lot of like younger YouTubers, and we did a collab with Trey and then Men of the West, who are both the same age. The young guys, they're younger than you, I think, Glidus.
Oh shit.
But no, yeah, a lot of these guys aren't up to date with like the culture stuff. I mean, Trey doesn't even have a social media thing. He only has Twitter, and that's it. So just to think about the younger guys I know, I've noticed. But for Attack on Titan, yeah, these people really want you to watch it for some reason. I don't think they want you to watch it, more so they want to see some theory videos from you.
Yeah. I think if you're actually like really busy with college and stuff, you don't have the time for social media. And then if you actually have like a really busy job or kids, you don't have time for social media. So there's like a sweet spot for people that don't have yet a super busy job or kids who are like not in school or something.
That's me, baby.
I'm trying to convince both Glidus and Trey to like, quit college and just travel the world with all this YouTube money they're getting. Travel the world and spread the seed. Get out there. Let's party, have a good time. Go to Jordan.
I'm perfectly happy with where my seed is currently. Thank you. I did have plans to travel, but then this thing happened, and so I've just been inside the last couple of years.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah. The election of Biden.
Yeah, no, it was actually the Backstreet Boys reunion tour.
Oh, they're all 5 of them or just 4?
Ruined my plan.
Because they were doing 4 of them for a while, right?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. And I think they were on tour for a long time with New Kids on the Block. The NKOTB 2B something.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Earlier today, LML's stream suggested that George released 5 to 10 chapters at a time instead of a whole book, or as many as he wants, sort of like manga. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, I would love it, but for that to happen, he would have to have 5 to 10 chapters, right? Like, it's kind of telling. I think somebody asked him, like, you're going to release any more sample chapters, and he said, like, oh well, something actually has to go in the book. Of course, he could actually like release, because there's 3 chapters that he's read that were not officially released. I think Tyrion 1, Barristan 2, The Forsaken, and I suppose, right? Yeah, the complete Victorian as well. I guess he could release that. So it's like 3.5 chapters that he's read that he hasn't released, that he could release. And so he could just release those, but he hasn't, because I guess he feels like the publisher needs actually content to publish or something. Or, but I do wonder if he even has those chapters. I don't know. Glidus, how far do you think he?
Chapter at a time, great. Oh, sorry, what?
I was saying, Glidus, how far do you think George is in on the Winds of Winter?
You know that SpongeBob meme where he spends all night working on his paper, and then he has a really, really nicely written "the." That's what George has done.
Stop it! You give me anxiety. I don't want to think about it.
The thing with releasing 5 or 10 chapters at a time is that George can't commit to that, because he wants to make sure that all of the preceding chapters work so that the succeeding chapters work. Like, the end of the book is so reliant on the beginning of the book, and if he decides that something needs to be different, he has to change so many things. And if he commits to publishing 10 chapters earlier than that, there's no way he can make the end of the book work.
Yeah.
So that's why he can't do it. And I actually believe that he's probably written most of the book. He's just obsessed with fixing it, with making it good. Maybe not most. I don't know. It's so weird, because he reported on getting so much work done in what year was it? Was it 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, it sounded really, really good, didn't it? It sounded like, man, he's on track.
It did. I feel like, he said, I think it was one of those situations where if I am just as productive or just a little more productive, maybe I can finish in a year. So I feel like the 2020 he wrote, half the book.
Yeah, that sounds like he wrote a shit ton of the book, and then he like found a snag that he needed to correct, and he just gave up
Yeah,
a little bit,
and he doesn't
as
want to tell
writers are
people that
wont to.
like he's got because he needs a full another
Yeah,
year or to be as just
like
as productive as he was before.
the possibility that he's encountered another Miranese not like situation is very high.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like just even imagining the situation, like I kind of figure out in my head on how I would do it, like most of the stories, but still like I don't like the North seems very complicated to me, and Dorne seems very complicated to me,
Yep.
and I wouldn't know how to unravel those. So I don't, yeah. The yeah, I think he's about halfway done. I think that he had a very productive 2020. I think he didn't write very much before, and he keeps thinking like, "Oh, once I start, I'll get it done." And then he got really productive, and then was like, "Fuck, that was really great, but I'm never going to get back into that zone with all these other projects, so I can't promise people." And if I say
I
in
know,
two
I'll take on more
years,
projects.
yeah, I'll take in more projects. And I think, yeah, I think he's hit some knots. I think he doesn't enjoy it. I think the show's over. He thinks it's done. I'm just trying to think about how I would feel or like what I would be focused on if I were in his shoes. You know. Um,
So for 8 years, for 4 years or so, Game of Thrones was like the biggest cultural phenomenon, right?
yeah.
And he feels like, I don't know, I would feel like I've missed my moment if I couldn't finish the book in that time.
Hmm.
And like, if this is supposed to be my magnum opus, that is so dejecting.
Like never going to prom, but then going to prom when you're 22. Like it's just
Oof.
like, like right. Like you're past it. You're past it. uh but yeah, he may have several Miranese knots that he doesn't know or wants to rewrite a bunch of stuff. Like he wrote a bunch and then is like, oh fuck. Um. So yeah, I don't think you're ever. I mean, unless he lives a long life and House of the Dragon completely fails and they just stop. They just cancel George R. R. Martin projects and they figure he's a persona non grata. No one wants to watch his stuff anymore. But what'll probably happen is that House of the Dragon will do okay, and we'll get at least a second season.
Yep.
And then they'll keep going. I mean, Westworld did okay, and it's gotten 3 seasons onto the 4th, right? Yeah. Like HBO's, and if HBO had better flagship shows, if there were other shows that they had, it would be different.
Yeah, they're kind of scrambling for one, aren't they?
But we are finding out because the Lavish Coffee Table book is coming out in October. That means probably House of the Dragon will come out in October.
Get your lavish coffee tables ready, everyone.
But the meaning
Clear
they're going for after Lord of the Rings, I think.
Oh, danger!
Smart butt.
Yeah,
I really like this message you've highlighted. I've thought about this a lot. I like looking forward to when The Winds of Winter is released, the word count coming out, and then dividing that by the number of months that he's been working on it, and then being really, really stunned by how low the resulting number is.
Oh yeah, it's like 150 words a day. Because Dance with Dragons is, I think, I've looked this up, like 440,000 words. I'm gonna look it up again just because.
And then it's been 11 years, so 132 months. That's 3,000 words a month.
Oh, it's 414. So 415,000.
Right. That's around 100 words a day. Yeah.
And then divide it by it's been 11 years, so that's 363,653 days, so 3,000. Oh, plus a year.
Yeah,
So
so 3,000, 4,000.
4,000 days. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
it's shit. Yeah, it's 100. It's like 104 words. It's like 104
Yeah.
words a day. Yeah, yeah, yeah. However, the fan fiction project is going well, going well.
Hey man, I told you about that. If someone writes a great chapter where John is resurrected, you gotta keep it in. Because I know you want John to stay dead, but
Yeah. I mean,
and
we'll
if someone
see.
writes a great chapter, I don't know who this person could be, where Littlefinger ends up becoming king. You gotta keep that in there too. You gotta keep it in there.
If it's
I don't know
from,
who this person would be.
yeah, I know. Carmine's. I get this chapter that's like Littlefinger woke up and ate a calzone. I'm like, who's writing this?
This fucking guy. I
It
just
was
want to, for the
it was
record,
fucking ballers. It was
haven't
pog as
eaten a
shit.
good calzone in
What?
in 2 years since I've been in the fucking Midwest.
That's
Midwesterners
right.
not
Because
know how
there
to make
aren't
good
any
calzone.
calzones, right?
They make them. But they suck.
Jamie slowly and thoughtfully turned each of the shrimps on the barbie.
Who could this be from? I don't. The maroon color of the sky shone down upon the sellswords' blades. Like what? Who? The There's some good writers though that have sent me stuff. I feel bad. I feel bad now that like I have to choose like one like way. Like yeah, I can mix stuff up, but like it's I feel bad that now that like people have put in a lot of effort and have like really good stuff, and I can't choose them all. I was thinking about maybe linking them all or something, so everybody can read different versions or something. But um, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, but it'll be fun. John will be resurrected. Fuck you. Yeah.
YouTube chat comments.
They, some of them are. Sometimes I don't know what the like people are referencing to. Something in the past. So, at some point, one tweet per day. It's true. Wait. Well, no. A tweet I guess is 150 characters, right? So this is at least 100 words.
So that's like 6 tweets.
Yeah, but to give people an idea of what 100 words is, let me see here. Let me see. I'm gonna bring up something that's 100 words. All right, this
doubled the length of the tweet, by the way, a few years ago. It's 280. So it's more like
oh shit, man, okay.
4 tweets.
All right. Here I've got Fire and Blood up here. So let's see here. So this paragraph in Fire and Blood, we shall return to Prince Vagon, his sister Daela, in due course, but now let us return to this joyful event in 74 AC. King Jaehaerys and Queen Alayne were blessed again by the gods with Prince Aemon's wife, the Lady Jocelyn, presented them the first grandchild. Princess Rhaenys was born on the 7th day of the 7th moon, which the Septons judged to be highly auspicious. Large and fierce, she had black hair of her Baratheon mother and pale violet eyes of her Targaryen father. At the firstborn child of the Prince of Dragonstone, many hailed her as the next in line for the Iron Throne after her father. When Queen Alayne held her in her arms for the first time, she was heard to call the little girl our queen to be. That's 140 words. Like, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like essentially 8 lines he has to write per day for a professional writer. Like I could see how someone like me, I'd be like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But when you're a professional writer, this is your craft.
He spent his life learning how to do this.
Yeah. Something that you can kind of do in your sleep. But Oh wow. We've gotten all depressing. Let's end on something fun. Let's something fun. All right. I'm gonna wait for the funnest chat, and then we'll end on something positive. And then
Let's sing a sea shanty together.
I wish I knew some.
Are you a bass or a tenor?
I'm kind of a baritone.
Right.
But
Oh, that's such a lazy answer. That just
I
means you
know,
haven't committed.
right? Right in between. Um, I haven't edited anything. I'm waiting for everybody to finish for the March 26th deadline before. But I've read through some of them just because they're there. But I haven't edited anything yet. Because I want to wait for everybody. Because obviously somebody that's like waiting to the deadline that might have something really great. Like I don't want to like edit stuff and then come upon like this fucking piece of gold. I mean, for me and my writing style, I'd be waiting until the very end and like redoing it until the very end. But so we'll see. Um, George R. Martin can rot in hell if he doesn't finish the series. I don't care if A Dream of Spring is 2 pages long and merely says the comet smashed into Westeros and destroyed the world. The end. That's
I guess the second page is blank. Or it's a really big font.
Second page is appendix. The house comet.
And it just says hot pie.
Yeah, the fact that he doesn't even he uses a MS-DOS application to write stuff doesn't help for editing. That's true, but I guess he doesn't even think about stuff in the same mindset as we do when we edit stuff with copying and pasting and chopping and stuff.
I don't think he could actually do copy and paste because, like, for Control C, you need to use 2 fingers, and we know he only uses 1.
That is very funny, like to actually see him typing like this. Like
it's tragic, actually.
it's like it's so. I mean, it's funny when like I think of how
my
much
grandma compose an email.
I'd love if like I feel like such an old man and out of it sometimes when people are like, oh yeah, no, we set that we set up a like a Discord server and things like this, and it's like yeah, I've been on Discord, but it's not like I know how to do that. I don't have an Instagram. Like I don't even get the concept. Like why should I do this thing? Like that's how out of it I am, right? But then you like go to the next level, and you're like, fucking A, really? Like fucking
Word star?
Word star? Like even my mother wouldn't do that. My mother's really computer illiterate. Like my mother's older. My mother's older than George. Imagine the next book being Daenerys procrastinating. I mean, that was the Dance with Dragons. It was Daenerys procrastinating, but her 13 chapters of her playing Dothraki politics. I mean, if it's just like descriptions of just like go on of her like eating Dothraki horse meat meals, that should be my April Fools. Is that someone just like I go here's the winning chapter, and then it's just like a long
describing a horse calzone she's eating.
The horse meat was juicy.
The calzone bread was light and fluffy.
Thank you, Glidus. Thank you. I'm telling you, the one I had back in Jersey was amazing. It's fucking fantastic. I love it.
Oh! I wanted to add. So I watched this. This is more positive. I'm going to end on this. I'm sorry.
Not Miss Marvel.
I want to talk about Miss Marvel because I know that this isn't enough that you wanted to talk about it on podcast. But Miss Marvel comes out, right? And I think that the premise is interesting. I know he's
why?
chuckling.
How? How is it interesting?
Okay, so the premise is is like she's this Pakistani American girl from Jersey who like feels like she's like an outsider between cultures, which is a very common um, immigrant feeling. You know, like to not feel you're not really of Pakistan anymore. You're not going to fit with Pakistanis. You don't really fully fit with Americans either. Um, and so I was like, huh, we've got like the immigrant from Jersey,
Here he
Carmine,
comes.
who like should he not like think this is an interesting concept? Um, though you may feel you're much more assimilated than Ms. Marvel is, or that.
Okay, the funny thing about that is that like Brazilians and Americans are almost like there's so many similarities between Brazilians and Americans is that I never really felt like an outsider. Same with Australians on some level. Like, Brazilians we have like the slavery past and the fucking, obsessed with like the football games.
Yeah,
though
we have a
football
common
is
heritage
different.
as criminals.
Oh, sure.
There are big similarities between, I would say, a lot of the New World and Australia in the sense that it's a lot of land. There's usually a discriminated against minority population
Ooh,
that
yeah.
that the majority population committed genocide against. There's rancher culture and the feeling that you're a rancher, freedom rancher like idea, like cowboy culture. And so all these things kind of do unify Australia and the New World. Like, and I guess the only difference is, I guess if you're born in Australia, you're not Australian, right? So unlike anywhere else in the New World, but.
Well, to your point about Miss Marvel, no, so I'll say this. You know how the neckbeards hate Brie Larson because Brie Larson said that one thing about how some movie she did where these white reviewers were criticizing her in it, blah blah blah. And she's like, "This wasn't made for you." I don't feel like Miss Marvel was really made for us, like Caucasian dudes. I'm including Glidus in this as well. I don't really think Miss Marvel was made for us. I think it's one of those Marvel shows who was made for like, a different type of person. So that's why I didn't really plan on discussing it or covering it or even, checking it out because, this wasn't made for me. And I'm completely cool with that.
So you're saying because you're more passing white that like you didn't experience that much feelings of being an outsider.
I guess. I mean, yeah, sure. Why not?
It's so weird because it's like, I mean, I can't talk about it on stream, but it's like I know so much more about your life where I'm like, that can't be true. Like I just know.
I'll say this. When I was younger, when I first came to this country, so whenever I say that I'm like not American, everybody flips what you sound so. What happened to your accent? When I first came here,
Your
I had
English is so good.
Exactly. And when I first came here, everybody was, I had an accent clearly, but I got rid of it so early on. It's just that, I blend in, just, talk about the Yankee game, occasionally throw in the New York accent, then you fit right in with everybody else. That's pretty much it, Rip on Jersey every now and then. If you're outside of Jersey, everybody will just take you right in. Assimilating the United States is fairly simple. Very fucking fairly simple.
Or I thought you were gonna be like Miss Marvel, to getting everything wrong, like she should be down in Edison or something. She's in the wrong area. This area of town is all Portuguese or whatever.
There's some of that too. I also spent a lot of time in Newark, New Jersey, and in Newark there's a huge Brazilian Portuguese population. So, never really felt like an outsider. Everybody spoke the fucking language.
Yeah. I mean, in the previews, she's also dealing with the fact that she's dealing with the Pakistani American community. It seems, at least from the previews. So there's a little bit of that. So, but it's yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, I know a lot of people from that area. Like essentially Edison to Newark, Jerseyites. And there's a lot of different perspectives from being from that area, but at the same time, like there's little things like like when Trump claimed that Arabs in New Jersey were cheering the Twin Towers falling, something that never happened.
Oh my
Like,
God.
I mean, no Arabs even did it in the Middle East, right?
So I have a vague. So when 9/11 happened, I believe I was in fourth grade.
Yeah.
I lived in Newark at the time, and I could see the smoke from the tower. Like I was close to. I was in Newark, so I was close to New York City. I know the funny thing is, I know what Trump is talking about, and I saw the same fucking thing. I don't know where it was because I remember coming home from school. And my grandmother was watching it on the news, and these people had like a huge cake, and they were celebrating. And the first question I asked my grandmother was, "This is not Brazil, is it? They're not selling." And she's like, "No, no, 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 no." I remember what Trump is talking about, but I don't think it was in New Jersey. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I know what he was talking about.
The problem is that when you show somebody celebrating, you don't know what they're celebrating for. So
yeah,
I remember after 9/11 on the news. There was a camera going through a Palestinian village, and Palestinians are just giving thumbs up and waving and going, "Hey!" And the note at the bottom said Palestinians celebrating 9/11. And it's like, no, if you walk through a Palestinian village, they're going to be like, "Hey, it's a foreigner. Weird, cool. Let's wave at him. Hey, how's it doing? How's it going?"
Yeah.
Like that's going to happen anyway. So you have no fucking idea what they were doing. So you have to sit down and interview people like why is this person smiling or celebrating at this moment? Was it somebody's birthday that day? What was going on? It was one of the worst pieces of media I've ever seen in my life. Was after 9/11 and that video, many videos of Palestinians celebrating. It's first of all, many of them don't have TVs. They wouldn't have even seen the footage. They would have no fucking clue for a long time that this kind of thing happened. But they're also they're not into randomly killing people. These are average people that are wait, a whole bunch of people died? Oh, that's really fucking weird. Why would they be celebrating? It was so brutal, and I remember it so clearly, and
I barely.
So I can imagine. It's not that I don't think Trump saw a news report on that and then reported that news report, but the news report was wrong. I don't think people were celebrating 9/11 in Jersey.
I think the point Preston's trying to make is we probably won't cover Miss Marvel. I think that's where Preston is ultimately going with this. Most likely will not take. By the way, Glidus, I have to ask: Are you gonna? Do you have any plans to cover Lord of the Rings or anything Marvel, anything Star Wars?
Shit. If I find myself comfortable with how knowledgeable I am, and if I have something worth saying. I really don't want to make a video where I don't say anything interesting or insightful or useful. That just sounds terrible.
Mm-hmm.
If I do that, people should unsubscribe, right?
I think you have a lot to say about a lot of stuff, and I would love for you to tackle on these other materials as well, homie.
Arnab says, as first generation Indian growing up in Wayne, New Jersey, I thought there was tons of awkwardness. There is an in-between status. So, this is definitely an audience for Ms. Marvel. I mean, I think about my wife who, she grew up in Wisconsin, but she thought, she's interested in this sort of thing. But I also had to address this one because it's just so horrible. 3,000 people died and leftists are worried about the Palestinians. LOL. No, I'm saying the reverse. Some rightist after 9/11 thought to put on a Palestinian bashing media to take advantage of that situation.
I know. We'll use 9/11 to throw Palestinians under the bus.
Yeah, for no reason. What do Palestinians have to do with 9/11? Zero, nothing. So why was so much media attention given to some random Palestinians in their village giving me the thumbs up, which is what happens when you go down the street of a Palestinian village. It's just LOL. I hope you're laughing out loud at how idiotic that is. It was a bunch of right-winger people trying to throw Palestinians under the bus after 9/11 for no reason.
Preston, you've been to
Now
Palestine,
I'm
right?
pissed off at the end of my stream.
Yeah, so to end on a positive note, here's how 9/11 was mishandled to make Palestinians look worse in the American media.
Yeah, fantastic. Wanted to talk about Ms. Marvel. God damn it.
The funny thing about the whole Miss Marvel thing is like, and I hate saying this, but someone said it to me. It's not even out yet. We just got like a teaser. I don't think we got a full trailer, and already the usual neckbeard suspects are raging about it for some reason. Like it's not even out yet, and someone already put like the reason why Miss Marvel will fail. It's not even out yet. Jesus, come on, just give it a shot at least. I won't be watching it. Not my cup of tea, but.
Well, I just think it's an interesting story. I mean, granted, it's my wife's story, so like I'm interested in that perspective, and I do think, even though Carmine is saying that it's none of him, it's a little bit his story, you know. Like, I think that there is like what I think separates Ms. Marvel from say a black dwarf in Lord of the Rings is that this is part of the plot. It's part of her character. It's part of who she is. Like, like, and that affects things going forward. Like when we watched Hawkeye, it had a deaf, like Hawkeye was deaf, and an antagonist is deaf, and those are some really important aspects to the narrative. Are the fact that the two characters are deaf. Now you can say, oh, they just threw a bunch of like, deaf people in because it was like charity to disabled people, and it was so woke. And it's like, but these were like really important parts of the plot, and actually like some of the best aspects of Hawkeye. That's what made the character rich and interesting and deep. Making Tuvok black in Star Trek, or making a dwarf black, doesn't add anything. It's just they happen to be black, and I don't think it takes anything away. I don't think it adds anything though, because there's nothing interesting about, like, Tuvok never talked about what it was like to be a black Vulcan at any point in the series of Voyager. And I doubt this black dwarf is going to be talking about what it's like to be a black dwarf. If she did, it would probably be really interesting. But like, how do dwarfs treat black dwarves? I don't know. But it's whether you're going to have a black character versus Lisa Turtle. Like, Lisa Turtle happened to be black, but her being black had no bearing on the plot ever in Saved by the Bell. So I think I like with Ms. Marvel and the fact that they're actually going to address these things. It's going to be part of her character and like who she is. But
well, this for any immigrant, like I said, Brazilians for the most part are Catholic. For any immigrant that comes from like a religious place, that will always be the struggle. Because I forgot her name, Kamala Khan. She is clearly not as religious as her parents, and she just wants to do what every American teenager wants to do, is have a good time with their friends, hang out, go to the movies, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting stories there about fitting in with your country at home, your parents, the kids at school, the what the new generation wants to do, the expectations of the first generation. There's all sorts of things that I mean, when I went to college, a lot of people dealt with issues of like, okay, well, I mean, whether you're Indian American or Jewish American or Black American, like if you date somebody that's not of your culture, like that's a big deal. Like I knew two Indian people that broke up because he was Catholic and she was Hindi. And I was like, what? Like, that's the reason, like both of you don't even believe in God. And it's like, no, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem with the families. I'm like, your life is too fucking short. You are idiots. And I know lots of Jewish people and non-Jewish people that broke up because of religion. And you're just like, oh my God, like there is no God. You guys don't believe in God. Like,
I know this bloke. I think his family was like Pentecostal Christian, and he fell in love with this lady who was like, I don't know, Lutheran. And like, those are not the most different Christian ideas, are there? Like, and his family fucking disowned him when he married this woman. And it's like you're tearing your family apart for what's ultimately a slight disagreement in how to worship the same god. It's like,
Yeah.
what are you doing to your family? How can that? I didn't get it.
And so it's fascinating. Like, I do think that it's a fascinating premise, Ms. Marvel, because you're talking about, you're making her Pakistani American. Like, Pakistan is one of the most religiously like strict countries, and weirdly contradictory, because some people are like, oh, I don't know, down in Lahore, it's different and stuff like that. But like, you're talking about the land where the Taliban comes from, where Osama bin Laden was hiding out, but at the same time, a culture that loves like dancing and like weird techno music. And you're talking about this like girl trying to fit in America, in Jersey, which is not exactly a conservative place. Like, this is the land
that's
of.
where I'm a little. How about this?
Mm.
I'd most likely watch this if she was from Alabama. Then that would be interesting. Alabama, all right, we got something there. Or Georgia. Or not fucking Georgia.
Yeah, but at least those
North
two
Dakota.
are religiously conservative places. Like, Jersey is the place where people are dropping their babies in dumpsters at prom. Like, this is Jersey Shore, like, sex world, right?
What?
I would have assumed that the biggest issue for a Pakistani moving to America is that nobody plays cricket.
They find enough.
That's the real state religion of Pakistan.
They find enough people to get together. You will find, like, at a regular, like, an American park, like, every Indian and Pakistani person, like, in the region will come together, and all of a sudden there'll be a cricket game. And you're like, what? Where did this happen? Like, they find a place. There's not like proper cricket fields, but they'll make a cricket field, like, out of just right. Like, there's some grass here. But yeah, it happens. It happens. Okay, last question, and then I'll let you guys go. I've kept these guys on forever. I've been on for 3 hours and 40 minutes now. Jesus, the whole fucking day. It's a good thing it was rainy. You mentioned altered states a few times. Have you had firsthand experience? I have been to a sensory deprivation chamber once, and that is they had a spa in DC that I went to, and so my experience was, you go in. It's kind of like going into a sauna. You go into a room by yourself. You take a shower first. You get into a robe, and then you come out, and they got this room in this tank, and you get into the tank, and it's saline water, so you float like you're in the Dead Sea, and then this had music in there to like cover up the noise. So there was some like spacey music, and then you put in earplugs, even though there was spacey music. I guess maybe they stopped the spacey music. It's hard for me to remember, but I put in earplugs, and then they closed the tank, and I thought it would take a while before I started feeling stuff, but it was actually pretty quick. Like, you're floating, and then all of a sudden I felt like I was like rushing down a river. Like, I felt like I was moving, even though I was staying still. And then every once in a while I would float and hit the edge of the tank, and then I would immediately like be back, and I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I'd like push myself off into the middle, and then I was like floating and rushing down this river. And I kind of felt, there's like starry lights, like if you rub your eyes, and you kind of do that for a while, and then the time goes by really fast. Even though it was an hour, it felt like it was like 20 minutes. And then I got out, and I was like super relaxed, but not sleepy, like wide awake, but super relaxed, as if.
So do you take the tab of acid before you get in the tank, or?
I think some people have done that. I think they were doing a lot of tests on that in the 70s and stuff like that. But
I remember reading that like this altered state sensory deprivation stuff was like, people were kind of worried about it, and like the hallucinogenic psychotropic effects it could have on the brain. and now
Yeah,
it's like a commonplace thing, I guess.
yeah, it's funny how it just like went away. I mean, it became this sci-fi trope, and I do think that like
Yeah.
Martin is like putting this all over the
Oh,
place in
that's
the
where I
story.
read about it in a Preston Jacobs video.
Yes, yes.
I looked into it after you mentioned it because that was really interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean it's I mean it's pretty clear. Like I guess I'd known for years that it was, you know, like Bran and the Crypts, like being in the dark and Arya being blind. I was like, okay, clearly that's sensory deprivation. And then when I read then when Forsaken came out, I was like, oh gosh, they're doing the same thing with Aaron. Perhaps he's going to have abilities unlocked or something. But I didn't really put together the floating thing um, for a while until doing Time Traveling Bran, where I was like, oh gosh, because I think someone had mentioned altered states and sensory deprivation, and then all of a sudden it like hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, like he really he's really copying altered states. But it's just such an influential movie. How do you not copy altered states?
Mm.
But you know, but everything. I mean, even the Matrix copies altered states. Stranger Things, you know, everything. People after I did the video, people started posting like many more, like a dozen more sci-fi things of like people floating and
Yeah, it's a seminal work in the genre.
yeah. R.I.P. William Hurt. All right, guys. Glidus, Carmine, thank you for joining me today. And Glidus, let me know about what you need for your video.
Will do.
All right, cool. All right, man. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for staying with me. Talk to you guys later.
Cool.